Welcome to Phonogenics 101. We are here with the Joni Mitchell family to talk about the final album she released on in the 70s. It's the final studio album that she released on Asylum Records, correct? And it was definitely the end of an era for Joni Mitchell. The Mingus album. It was the final project that Charles Mingus worked on before he passed away. Two of us have the rare songbook, maybe the only two in the world. No, I'm just kidding. But before we go into this album, let's jump around the panel and have everyone introduce themselves. We'll start with Bob.
All right, so Mingus, when it came out, I mean, this is a great record, but in '79, this is not what I was into, so I ignored it. I didn't get it till the latter '80s on cassette. A friend of mine had it and gave me the tape, which I listened to. So this is kind of when I jumped off of the Joni bandwagon, to tell you the truth, which I jumped right back on with Shadows and Light. But this is a great record. It just was not where I was at in '79. So that's me in this record.
All right, Sue.
Hey, so 1979 was a pivotal year for me because I got married. So that was interesting. But the thing about Mingus was that I was dedicated to every album that came out from Joni, from Court and Spark. I'd gotten into Court and Spark, and then I went back and got the other albums that were earlier. And then every time an album came out from her that till 1979, I got the album. And with this album, I fell in love with it as soon as I got it, because at the time I was really into the fusion bands like Weather Report and Return to Forever, and so I recognized the artists on it, and of course Jocko. But there was something about the music that was so uplifting to me. I mean, because it was so important. I don't know. I don't want to say intellect. I mean, it was intellectual, but it was just on a higher level than she's ever done before. And I remember being drunk, standing on a chair in my dining room during a huge party at my house, and I had just gotten the album, and I put it on, and I was singing Dry Cleaner from Des Moines at the top of my lungs, And everybody around me was looking at me like, oh my God, she's drunk again. What the hell is she doing? But I really, really love this album. And, my life took a turn. And I mean, I got Wild Things Run Fast and Dog Eat Dog. But then after that, I kind of let go of Joni, which was weird,
Huh.
So Mingus was really the album that I thought she had hit the high on that one. So, maybe, and of course, I felt like I was the only person on earth who actually felt that way, so, especially around my friends. So.
Will you be reenacting that drunk on a chair performance for us tonight?
I would love to.
Okay. Well.
I got my 25-year chip this week, though, so I think it would be appropriate.
Oh. Congratulations, by the way. Yay. All right, Mark, you're next.
I'm Mark Scott, and the phone is ringing here right at the moment. This was the first record of Joni's that came out after I moved to Seattle. And I didn't know much of anybody in Seattle except the 3 people that I was living with at the time. So I listened to this record a lot, and I recognized that it was different. Like Sue, I came in on Court and Spark and loved everything before and after that, up until this point. But I had pretty much made up my mind that I was going to follow her wherever she decided to go. And this record was very different musically. It was complex, and it took me a lot of years, I think, to fully appreciate it. But I think it was a watershed in her music, and I love it now.
Cool. All right, next we have Dave and Robin.
I was working as a waiter in Colorado in the summer of '78 and or was it was it 78 this came out, or 79? Yeah.
79.
79. Okay, summer of 79, and there was a bartender who was this big, burly, bearded mountain man kind of guy, Grizzly Adams kind of, and he was the bartender, and I after my shift, he said, Joni Mitchell's new album just came out today. It's the best thing she's ever done. So I immediately went out and bought it. So I got it on the day of release, and I agreed. I like Sue, I was really into Weather Report, and I knew all about, most of these musicians, and so it was easy for me to like. I didn't like the raps very much. I found them annoying, and I still do. But I thought her voice was in top form. I loved the ambitiousness of it, the angularity of the melodies, and how it was jazz without any solos. There's really no solos on this record, but it's a jazz record, which is what she told the musicians, she wanted. She didn't want to be just the chick singer and then the boys get to play. She wanted to be part of the interaction throughout, and she managed to pull that off. I've always loved it. And we actually got to perform this album twice in 2015, I think it was, and we got assembled the best of the best jazz musicians in San Diego, and had one rehearsal and went for it.
Wow.
And I think we need to mention that the name of your band is actually from a line from a song.
It is, album, yes, right? And we may be plugging that point several times. Yeah.
I love it. Robin, do you have anything to add?
Okay. Well, I didn't really get into this album, not because I didn't like it, but except for Dry Cleaner from Des Moines, which I think there were a lot of jazz singers doing that song, until we decided to perform it. And that's been my experience actually with a lot of Joni Mitchell's music, is as a interpreter. But it's not a real emotional album for me, but the lyrics are just spot on in her description of Charlie Mingus. And I love the challenge of singing some of these really difficult songs. The intervals are just all over the place. And I think it was Malka's book where Joni, she said that it was, some of these songs, Chair in the Sky, I would think Sweet Sucker Dance too, were really challenging for her. And that, I read that Malka's book right when we were going to be preparing to do the album, and it made me feel a little bit better because it was just hard. It's just not an easy album to do, which is true for a lot of Joni's songs. But after I got into it and learned them, I just loved it. It was just in a technical way. But anyway, so and we were actually going to do Chair in the Sky, but Jamie said that he was going to do it. So we've been working on Goodbye Pork Pie Hat, which I love, Goodbye Pork Pie Hat. And as all of you know, that was written and recorded by Charles as an instrumental. So it wasn't specifically written for her like some of the other melodies.
Hi, Jahida.
Hi.
Hey, welcome.
I was trying so hard and I was like, nothing is working.
Yeah, it was a struggle, but we got here, Jahida.
Yay. Les says hello and that he's sorry he had to miss it. He's in New Mexico, so you got me.
I thought you were also with him in New Mexico, but I do have your video that I'm going to show.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have to work this week, so.
Damn work. I have to work at 6 a.m. tomorrow, but we're just going to deal with it. It's all good. Chris,
Well,
you're next.
also, just so you guys know, I'll tell you know what, when we are not recording, I'll tell you why Paz is not here.
We know.
Oh, you
We
know.
know.
Okay.
Yeah. Much
Okay.
love to our friend.
That is, unless you have an update on Paz, but we'll check it.
He's on meds.
Yeah.
If I need to pause for pause, I can anytime. All right, Chris,
Hi.
go ahead and introduce yourself.
Oh, okay. I'm Chris, and I was just following along with Joni. I was again like Mark said, I was going to follow her wherever she was going to lead. I had a roommate in college who was into some really heavy, crazy jazz, and I seem to remember like having endured night after night of screaming Anthony Braxton saxophone. It was just, really crazy loud stuff. So I figured, where this can't possibly be as out there as that. Charles Mingus, I was familiar with Mingus so I knew that wasn't his style. I knew that Joni wasn't probably going to go in that direction. So I figured, how crazy could it be? And you know what? I was reading, the advance press about how, she's been invited to participate in Charles Mingus, sort of like summing up his life and writing his epitaph and his legacy. And I thought, well, that's really great. Then I started to read the stories about how Paprika Plains had sort of prompted this whole, him seeking her out. And I thought, well, now I'm really into finding out where this is going to go. So
All roads lead to Paprika Plains.
well,
It seems that way.
Sooner or later they come back. But I also will say one thing that a lot of people forget. I mean, yes, I agree with everything that Robin said about the music and how difficult it is to sing and what constitutes it as jazz and where it came from and how difficult it is. But let's remember this: she will always, and had at the time and since, gone on to say that everyone hated it. Well, not everyone hated it. This is the September 1979 cover of Downbeat magazine. And if you'll notice one thing, Joni Mitchell's name is bigger than Count Basie's name. So it obviously got enough attention, and the reviews were quite good. So in terms of her having street cred as a jazz performer, she had it contemporaneously there. So there really was kind of, I don't know why she wanted to, there was no reason why she had to feel she had to court the popular fans unless she just wanted the popular money. So I'm hoping that she can feel really rest assured that this is a highly revered piece of work and it deserves every bit of accolade it gets. That's all I got to say.
So, Joni, if you're watching, we already have you on the cover of a magazine. We have someone on a chair in 1979 dancing, singing one of the songs. So it was loved at the time, right? All right, David is next.
Yeah, hi. Like Mark, by the time I think I had heard, the first stanza of All I Want in Blue, I thought I will follow her anywhere, and I did. And this is the album where, boy, that really paid off. I know nothing about jazz except what Joni has taught me, and I sing. So that's kind of I sing dry cleaner from Des Moines at the top of my lungs, and I sing Chair in the Sky. And when Robin was talking about the intervals, it's like it's just great. It's just. Really someplace I had never, a kind of music that I really wasn't familiar with at all, and yet so lovely, really, really beautiful. think there was something else I wanted to say, but I'm not sure what. Just that I'm really grateful. This is one album that I'm really grateful to Joni for, because I wouldn't know any of this shit if it weren't for this album. So.
All right. Up next, we have Jack.
Yeah, I'm Jack. I like this album a lot when it first came out. You know, I think I realized, okay, this is a little bit deeper into the jazz realm that I'm used to going, though like others mentioned, because of Jocko, I was very much into Weather Report and saw them several times in concert and was familiar with several of the musicians on here. Some of the songs I loved right off the bat, you know, Dry Cleaner, The Wolf, you know, I still have to howl every time that song comes on, no matter who's in the room or around me. I just can't listen to it without howling. I also agree that I think this is my favorite Joni voice as far as vocally. I think that this is as great as she is. I love the liner notes in it, you know, the various stories about the whales that, you know, beach themselves on Mingus's birthday or whatever the whole story was. So yeah, I like this album a lot. I still listen to it on a pretty regular basis. So yeah, that's about it.
All right. Next, we have Ruben.
Hello, I'm Ruben. I first heard Mingus when I was about 15 or 16, and I didn't listen to Joni's albums in order. I bounced all around and just bought the next one that I could find, really. And I remember hearing this the first time. I absolutely fell in love with it. I remember wandering around in the woods in Western Maine when I was a kid, singing along to A Chair in the Sky and Sweet Sucker Dance, and just thinking this was the best record I had ever heard. And I still feel that way. I listen to this one a lot. It's always been one that I revisit quite frequently and listen to in the car a lot. So anyway, it's one of my all-time favorite of Joni's.
All right. And last, but of course not least, not in New Mexico today, our friend Jahida.
So I presume we're just talking about the album as a whole.
Yeah, just, you know, your experience, a little high level.
Well, I, like Ruben, also didn't listen to Joni chronologically. So because I was introduced to her from a teacher of mine, and he just gave me hits. So from there I went, and this was also in the Napster days. We're going way back. So so the only thing I could do, because no one I knew was listening to this, you know, my dad had Song to a Seagull and that's it, you know? So, so I had to just scrounge whatever was out there from Joni, you know, because like I said, I couldn't find it, but thankfully I would say I probably listened to it around the same age, like 16, maybe 17 for the first time. And I was pretty entranced just because it was unusual to me. I listened to jazz, but not real jazz as much as, like, and I hate to say not real jazz, but more R&B, kind of like that kind of funk jazz kind of stuff. And so this was, at first listen, I was entranced, but I didn't get it at all. And so I didn't listen to it as much. You know, I really loved Court and Spark because it was very, like, kind of R&B and jazzy. And I loved Hissing of Summer Lawns for the same thing. But to me, I was like, this is too much for me. Until I hit my 20s. And then all of a sudden I was like, now I get it. And I kind of got really obsessed with this album for a long time. And I think it was not so much for Mingus as it was just because she was doing things I had never heard somebody do before, you know, with the Coyotes, you know, making that be a just bone chilling kind of, you know, part of a song. Like there was no one else doing something like that except maybe Pink Floyd with Dogs. You know what I mean? So I couldn't really like wrap my brain around how she did this, and the wolf that lives in Lindsay, and I remember hearing Bjork do her I think I know she did boho dance, but didn't somebody also do Sweet Sucker Dance, or am I just imagining that or something? Bob?
Yeah.
It's been done, not a lot. Certainly not by Bjork.
Okay, then I just maybe that was a fever dream I had, but I just felt like so much of this was really fun, and even just the fact the little raps in the middle, things that were just silly to me, but really were kind of, I mean, I know this is going a little bit of a tangent, but this is how my brain works. So how when you read books and they have those interstitial chapters, like in Steinbeck, the Jodes, what's that?
The Grapes of Wrath.
Grapes of Wrath, thank you. The Grapes of Wrath. They have the interstitial chapters with the turtle and everything. That's, to me, I equate that with the raps, the little interludes. Those are, you can take them out and still enjoy the album as a whole, but they really kind of are the meat in the little, they're like a little glue in there, and I really like them. So. And now I'm gonna shut up.
Never shut up, please. Well, my journey for the album, as Ruben, you came into Joni in the 80s, correct? Right. So I also came into Joni during Chalkmark and a Rainstorm, and that's the only Joni Mitchell I knew except for the song "Help Me." So by the time I backtracked to Mingus, at first I liked "God Must Be a Boogeyman," then I got into "Dry Cleaner," then "Pork Pie Hat." So it was like, as time went on, I got into more and more of the albums, and Sweet Sucker Dance and Chair in the Sky were the last two that it took to grab me, because they're the more electric piano songs, and they're different. But like some of you said, once I got them, like I really got them, and it's all I listened to for a long time. And once you just weave yourself into the fabric of these songs, they never leave you. And I too did like the raps. I thought it just added. It's such a heavy project with, really dealing with the end of their legacy and the end of their death, or the end of their death with his death. So it just humanized the project, and I don't know, I loved it. So since we have so many of us, it would be probably good to stay on mute except for when you're talking, just to clean up the sound a little bit. And someone jump in, because I never do research before these. I just have bullshit stored in my head. From what I remember, Charles Mingus heard Joni Mitchell and wanted her to collaborate with him on his final project. But didn't he originally want her to do like something 4 quartets or something? 5 quartets?
T.S. Eliot's poem.
Okay.
He wanted it set to music.
And she said, that's too much, right? I can't do that.
She said it'd be easier to distill the Bible than to distill T.S. Eliot's 4 quartets.
Yeah, she said that she couldn't find, I think she said, the meat on the poetry or something. But she likes to quote Nietzsche about poets. Something about the water so that they might appear to eat. But she said no, she didn't want to do that. And so he kind of gave it up for that. And then contacted her again and then told her, I have these 6 melodies. Joni 1, Joni 2. Joni 3, and that was kind of the bait that hooked her.
Now, of the 6 melodies, how many made it onto the album?
3.
3, right? Because there's only 6 songs on the album, plus the raps. God Must Be a Boogeyman was a Joni Mitchell original composition about his life, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Then
we have on Beneath the Underdog, the book, actually the first 4 pages of that book.
So A Chair in the Sky would be one of the instrumentals. Wolf That Lives in Lindsay is also a Joni Mitchell original, right? Sweet Sucker Dance must have been one of the instrumentals, then Dry Cleaner, because Pork Pie was a pre-existing instrumental, right?
Okay, I guess.
Cool. So when you put in the album for the first time, the first thing you hear is boom, the piano. And is it Charles Mingus's daughter? Is her name Sue, if I remember correctly?
His wife.
His wife. Okay. His wife. And they're singing happy birthday to him.
To you.
Play that weird minor chord.
Minor
chord.
53.
Yeah. I'm 63.
Do you know what's weird about that? I was thinking about that today. If he was born in 22 and he was 53, that means that was recorded in 1975, which was a lot before Joni and him hooked up. So that must have been
Sue Mingus turned these recordings over to Joni for use on the record. Of course, the Isa Muggin is Joni and Charles singing together. The rest of them were earlier recordings that Sue gave to Joni for the album.
Now, are we sure it's them singing together? She just didn't overdub herself over? I'm getting too deep into it. I'm sorry. All right, so
I think that was Sue singing it, wasn't it?
It was Sue, yes.
Yes, it was Sue.
And happy birthday.
Yeah. What? And happy birthday.
Yeah, but not Isa Muggin.
No.
Isa Muggin is Joni and Charles.
Yeah.
There was a group of people there, I think, that were singing.
Not Isa Muggin. I think that's just the two of them.
Oh, I thought we were talking about the birthday rap.
Yeah, the birthday's a group.
We're talking all over the place.
There's somebody in there that says, well, come on now, man, how old are you? You know, 54, mother. Anyway.
54, motherfucker. I love it.
Well,
I always thought that guy was like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Joni may have been overdubbed because he wasn't speaking very well at that point. You know, and in fact, when he had somebody transcribe these melodies to send to her. So maybe.
She said there was a metronome on that tape, and the second time she listened to it, she woke up in the morning with her foot going in time to that metronome. It drove her crazy.
Oh.
I also heard her say about this album that when she was listening to the tapes, I might be making this up because that's what I do. Memory is a weird place, but that she was lying on the beach in Malibu and listening to it and figuring out, and she suddenly thought, huh, I'm a musician. I knew I was a painter, but I'm a musician. Wow, yeah.
So before we get into the album, there were different versions cut of these songs that were different than the ones that made the final album, correct? Are there some more? Yeah. And I know they're on YouTube, but I never listened to them. I was kind of waiting for
the first session was Stanley Clarke, Jan Hammer, John McLaughlin, Jerry Mulligan, Tony Williams, Phil Woods on sax. It was a whole different group of people, and that's out there on YouTube. It got released a while ago, and I'm sure that we'll get an official release on a reprise box set in the near future of all those tracks.
Are they a little bit more straightforward, those original cuts?
I was listening to them this week, and they're different. Like, they're the same songs, but the overdub of the different musicians, you know, that make the songs sound a little different from the album. And it's really interesting because there was like the Jan Hammer piano on God Must Be a Boogeyman. I thought was awful.
Really?
I was really glad that she took it off. It just didn't match what she was trying to do. I mean, he's a great, musician. I'm not saying what he was playing was bad. I'm just saying that it didn't go with. And I could see how she would have, when you look at the final product, there were a couple of things going on with the different musicians that, Stanley Clarke is an amazing bassist, but Jocko was just phenomenal on this album. And I was kind of glad that, Stanley Clarke was not the bassist, and it was Jocko.
Didn't Mingus himself want acoustic bass and acoustic piano and basically a traditional jazz ensemble? And so in a way, she went against his wishes by bringing in Jocko, and then Jocko brought in Herbie, and it turned into electric jazz. And I wonder if Mingus sort of said, okay, fair enough, it sounds good, or till his last breath didn't like it.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. But, I mean, I felt like
it was controversial at the time.
I felt like the end product was closer to that, vision than what was going on in those maybe it's because they were experimental and they were kind of loose. I don't know, but some of the sounds were pretty jarring, I thought.
Bob.
I mean, to hear Joni tell it, Charles Mingus heard all the finished tracks except for God Must Be a Boogeyman and really was very positive about this record.
That's what I remember too.
Yeah, I remember
I think
that.
there were 3 or 4 different versions of these songs. This is Allie.
Hey.
And there were different groups of the people that you mentioned, Bob, different groupings of them. And the first one was kind of a traditional acoustic jazz band. And then the second one had 2 musicians from the Maharishnu.
Well, Jan Hammer and John McLaughlin.
Yeah, on it. And then I don't remember what the last one was.
I remember in an interview her saying that the original versions were more meat and potatoes jazz.
Yeah.
I read that she preferred that she ended up using this version because she liked how her vocal takes were, and so if she'd liked her vocal takes on the other ones, she might have gone with one of those. But she liked how she was able to navigate these melodies, on these versions, and so maybe she was just mostly listening to how she did herself and paying less attention to the ensemble.
Chris.
Sorry about that. I had to unmute. Dave, did Steve Katz or did he say anything about how Henry's health was at this time during some of these earlier sessions, or did he?
He did. He said that it was mostly during Don Juan that Henry was in a lot of pain and was lying on the couch and letting Steve engineer. But by Mingus, he was doing a lot better. So, but the mixing of Mingus, Steve had a big hand in. So I don't know who did what, of course, and maybe he wouldn't remember either. But there are some weird things about the sound of the album, like having tons of reverb on the bass and a bass drum that is just dry as a bone. That's a strange thing, having very dry drums and really wet bass. I mean, who does that?
But he didn't say anything about the bands that were formed and then replaced. And
no,
nothing anecdotal.
To be honest, I don't think Steve was feeling that good. He had pneumonia a few weeks earlier, and before I interviewed him, and he wanted to wait until he felt better before we could speak. And finally he said, yeah, I think I'm okay to, so I called him on 3 occasions and we talked for an hour apiece, but he would get tired, within an hour after each one. And then he passed away a few months later, and this is during COVID year. So his pneumonia, which had been early 2020, could well have been COVID, but nobody really knew what that was yet. So I'll never know.
Rest in peace.
All right, so we have the happy birthday rap, and then the opening track is, of course, God Must Be a Boogeyman, which I love that song. All right, David, your hand's already up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say before we left the raps, actually, I think the raps are great. I think they're absolutely integral to the album, and I'm talking to you, Mutts. I want to hear the raps next time this gets performed.
Me too.
You can do it. You can do it, and you should do it. You guys are great. You can do the raps.
I have to get him on board with that too, because I think the raps for me, especially the one about the funeral, just paint the whole backstage jazz history, and it so reminds me of that painting that hung in Nucleus Nuance that Joni did. I forget what it was called, but it sold on eBay or elsewhere a few years ago, and I don't know exactly who got it, but it just hung there for so many years and really encapsulated what the club felt like and when you were listening to it, not just being there.
I think the fans have spoken.
We did get wolves on the wolf that lives in Lindsay, and I howled on that.
That was fun. I downloaded some wolves on YouTube and then had the sound man bring them up in between verses. So yeah, we even had the sax player trying to kind of mimic the howling with a soprano sax.
Oh, wow. Do we have any other? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm just going to say, I'm just completing work on remixing 10 years of Mutt's concerts, the best of, and it's taken me months to kind of go through this stuff so I'm going to be sharing a link with you all for if you want to download this stuff, but there's a lot of stuff. It's like 65 tunes or something, but it spans all the different albums that we've done and all the different lineups of the bands, and some of the Mingus stuff was some of the best.
Awesome. I can't wait to hear it. Do we have any other thoughts on the raps before we move on to the songs? Bob, did anyone cover the raps?
We have one rap cover, which I will get to when we get there.
Okay.
Do you want us to talk about all of them right now?
I guess we can go in order. All right. God Must Be a Boogeyman. She's writing about Charles Mingus's life here. That there's three different pieces of Charles Mingus is what she's saying, right? He is three, one's in the middle, unmoved. Who's performing God Must Be a Boogeyman? All right, Sue, I'm going to pause and we'll do a little sound check.
Here goes, I guess. Okay, I just want to say that when I was listening to Joni's version of this song on the studio album, I was just blown away by her guitar style on this. It's just, I mean, you think, I don't know what the rhythm was. The rhythm was amazing, and not only was the rhythm amazing, but it was also being syncopated with Jocko's bass. And Dave, do you know whether that was done simultaneously, or did they overdub Jocko or overdub Joni on that? Oh, he's muted. But I couldn't do it. I mean, I tried, and I'm doing it my way. So, one of these days I'm gonna woodshed and try and get the way she's doing her incredibly percussive performance. But this is just me. So, okay, here we go. One's in the middle unmoved, waiting to see what
to the other two, to the one attacking, so afraid, and the one who's trying to love and trust, and getting himself betrayed in the plan. Oh, the divine plan. God must be a boogeyman.
God must be a boogeyman.
I'm so sweet, so overly loving and trusting. He lets people into his innermost sacred temple. Blind faith to care, blind rage to kill. Why they let him talk him down to cheap work and cheap thrills in the plan. Oh, the insulting plan. God must be a boogeyman.
God must be a boogeyman.
Which would it be? Mingus, one or two or three? Which one do you think he'd want the world to see? Well, world opinions, not a lot of help when a man's just trying to find out how to feel about himself in the plan. Oh, the cockeyed plan. God must be a boogeyman.
God must be a boogeyman.
He is three.
God must be a boogeyman. Will never be the same again. All right. And just a reminder, if it doesn't switch back to gallery view on the upper right-hand corner, just change your grid on your computer. All right, Sue, that was awesome. And the background singers, I don't know if Joni would hire us or not, but maybe when they do the remaster, they'll want to dub us in instead. Maybe.
I just have one other thing to say about this song. So while I was playing it, I realized that she always played the 7th fret harmonic as she said God. And it reminded me of my Catholic upbringing when they used to ring the bell when they'd hold up the host, you know? Don't ask me why that memory came up, but I thought, oh man, I got to tell them. Because it's just really weird to this Catholic. She was like, ping, God must be a boogeyman.
All right, we have Jahida, then Jack to start it off.
Well, I mean, as somebody who is a recovering Catholic, I definitely, I mean, the same thing, right? So it seems just from, I'm not as crazy knowledgeable as Les is about Joni, but I mean, and it wouldn't take a crazy obsessed person to see that she certainly has a very interesting relationship with religion, and I think, a lot of it kind of, I think she fancies herself, and she probably is quite sort of an intellectual person, you know what I mean? And what kind of worldly, and I think that really seeps into her writing a lot, and maybe even subconsciously, her musicianship, like the chords, and maybe for her that is a chord of inquiry, like God, so I don't know, maybe.
All right, Jack, you were next, and then we have Bob, and then Mark.
Yeah, so I had the same reaction. You know, when I first heard the song, I really liked it, but the little Catholic boy that's buried deep down inside me was like, Joni's gonna go to hell. Oh my God. So yeah, I was a little freaked out by it, but other than that, I thought it was a great song.
All right, Bob.
So if you read the first 4 pages of the book Beneath the Underdog, the Mingus biography, all the lyrics in this song are literally from that book. So, you know, Joni didn't really write this song as much as she lifted passages from this book and made this song. It's a great song. But it's not Joni writing the song. It's Joni lifting phrases from this book, Beneath the Underdog, and made a song out of it.
Interesting. All right, we have Mark and then Chris.
Mark, you're muted.
Okay. Joni said in an interview somewhere that I read that Mingus was really a very gentle soul, but he also could have this blind rage to kill. And the remark I think that she concluded with was that what he gave to the world, he wasn't always compensated adequately for it. And I also read that he played with Duke Ellington's orchestra in the 50s or something like that, who was one of his childhood idols, and that he was one of the few people that Ellington fired because he got into a fight with a musician during a performance. He got into a fight with him on stage. So he could blow up. He had a temper that you didn't want to mess with. And she said that he did have these two seemingly contradictory pieces of his personality. And he could be very gentle and sweet and you know, let people in. And then when he got betrayed, he could also blow up and just rage and be almost crazy. So that's kind of what she's describing there. Whereas this person in the middle kind of sees both and reflects them back and has a more philosophical view of it, I guess.
It's too bad that Charles Mingus never heard the song, because I guarantee he would have loved it.
Yeah, Joni said he would have gotten a chuckle out of it.
Yeah. All right, Chris, your hand was up.
Yeah, I think this is, for me, on the album, and I'm glad that she kind of put it first, because for me, it resonated as the mission statement. This was basically, you know, we're here to talk about Charles, and this is how complicated he was. And in drawing this portrait, this one portrait, because many of the other songs sort of exist as songs, they don't necessarily point back to Charles specifically. This one does, and discusses him individually with details of his personality, as you know, you were discussing, Mark and Bob, but also, you know, just the fact that there are unanswered questions. Everybody, and this man is as complicated as everyone we know, and he will go to his grave with those questions unanswered. And maybe did she finish this song prior to his passing, or was it finished afterwards? Does anybody know?
It's the only one he did not hear on the project.
So it's possible that it was sort of finished in a way that allowed this to become really, even though it leads the album, this is the epitaph, because
the epitaph.
Again, many of the other songs that he did provide the melodies for exist on their own. They don't necessarily, lay tribute to him specifically.
Welcome, Jim. We're on God Must Be a Boogeyman.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
There you
Hi,
go.
Jim.
Hi, everybody. A lot of my old friends are here.
Oh, hi.
And we're getting older every day. It's a whole
right.
joke.
So I just have everybody kind of muting their computer when they're not talking, and then just raise your hand when you want to jump in the conversation. And speaking of, Dave, your hand is up.
Yeah, I really realizing that I misspoke earlier when I was said there weren't solos on the record, because this song starts with a bass solo. So the album actually gets underway with a bass solo. So I will revise my claim and say that there aren't many solos on the album.
Fair enough. Jahida.
So that story about Mingus being fired by Duke sounded really familiar. And I was like, God, I feel like I've read a story about this. And I did. So one of the best, I highly recommend it if you've never read it, best books, it's called Jazz Anecdotes, second time around. And it is full of really, really awesome stories. And so they actually do talk about that fight between Mingus and the guy. So it says it, it goes, I should kick your behind. You're gonna do what? And he repeated it. I said, I'm gonna go upstairs, and when I come back, I would like for you to kick me right in behind. And I went upstairs, and when I came down, he thought I had a knife. He grabbed one of those big pieces of iron that holds curtains and so forth. Carney said, watch out, Juan, he's got a piece of iron. But he was thinking I had a knife, you know? I didn't have a knife. I used to sometimes carry a knife because you can never tell, but not all the time. One of the stagehands grabbed him and stopped it. After the show, I was upstairs in my dressing room, and I was so nervous I was crying, which is crazy for Mingus to admit, right? And he came up there, and the manager was at the door of my the other guy said it, sorry. And he came up there, and the manager was at the door of my dressing room. He still wanted to keep arguing about it with me. I didn't respond or anything. I stayed right like that in my dressing room, and Al Selly was there trying to hold him back. Duke came over and told him to, and told Selly to throw him out, Mingus, to give you 2 weeks notice, pay him off, and let him go. So he came back again and said, Juan, you made me lose my job, and so forth. And I said, well, I can't help it. You started it. So that was, and it was Juan Tisol.
Wow.
So
he was the composer of Caravan.
All right. Does anyone else want to jump in about God Must Be a Boogeyman? All right. Well, next we have another rap, correct?
Well, we have covers.
Oh my gosh. I'm fired as the host.
I've got to remember. I always have to remind you, Jeremy.
Thank you, please. I'm a little tired.
Hold your wrist. Hold your wrist out. Slap it.
If I miss anybody or anything, just jump in and yell at me. I won't be offended. Bob, how many covers were there?
Not a lot. 13 in total. The first one being from Australian jazz singer Jackie Fitzgerald, who we'll hear from again on this record, 1985, a vinyl album that she was the first to record this song.
Bob, I wish you would have presented the covers in a different way and been like, there's 13, one's not very good. The second's decent, but all right.
Well, that's good. I would have done that.
So next 13. We have
one's from Australia. Waiting to see what the others are going to do to you.
We have another rap called Funeral, where he's talking about how he'd like his ashes to be spread in the Ganges River in India. Yogi. Jahida.
Vedanta Society, right?
Yeah. Vedanta Society.
But this is the one where I mean, you know, like I said, first time I heard this, I was like around 16 or something. So my initial thinking was, is this Arnold Schwarzenegger? Because, you know, I was dumb and young. So, but yeah. Who was this guy?
I know.
I don't even know. Because I feel like him saying it was just so far out is like the best thing I've ever heard.
Yoda, is that that's what he calls him? Yoda, doesn't he?
I thought it was Yogi.
Yoga? Yogi? I thought it was Yoda.
Yoga.
For some reason.
Yoda.
That's what he's talking about. Vedanta Society is yoga, right?
Has there been a Joni Fest at the Vendetta Society yet?
I like how Swede just kind of goes, oh, look, let's stop talking. I'm sorry. No. That's great. That's great. I really like it. No, you're going to cut, dude. Don't. You live a long time. Sorry, I brought it up.
I love this rap. I think the hearing the off stage, they're off stage, but there's somebody on stage wailing out there.
Yes.
Just, it's just you can smell the smoke in the room. I love this.
See, I felt like they were in a restaurant with, a bunch of alcohol on the table, and that was just the music that was being piped in. So it's interesting. We all have. What was someone else's vision of where they were during this? Jim, making his Phonogenics debut.
On mute.
Oh, you're on mute, friend.
Okay, I'm back. Yeah, it just seemed like it was somebody's house, and they were very, very drunk. So I think the guy was one of Mingus's drinking buddies, and he seemed to be unfamiliar with Indian culture at all. So Charles is trying to totally dumb it down for him, and he goes, yoga. He's like trying to reach some kind of cultural touchstone, and he comes up with the word yoga. That's what it sounds to me.
Oh my gosh. And then it ends with a bass note from Jaco Pastorius going into the next song. Do we have any other final thoughts on our rap here? Oh, Mark, and then Bob.
Well, Vedanta Society, I believe, is a branch of Hinduism. And Sue Graham Mingus said that Charles liked it because it was inclusive. They accepted all other different religions and races and things, and that was why he liked it. And he wanted to be, it was actually scouted that way. That's all.
Right. Bob, right? Caught you in the middle of a sip. I'm sorry.
The end of this rap, Mingus is saying he wants to cut Duke. In other words, he wants to outlive Duke Ellington,
right?
Which he did not do by about 20 years. I think Ellington lived to 77, and when Mingus died, he was 57, 58. So,
wow.
Jahida.
Yeah.
Well, I thought the really cool thing once I finally actually, started learning about jazz and stuff, and especially in that book that I just read from too. And Dave, I'm sure you can probably attest to this as well, is I eventually learned about cutting contests. And so the idea was, I thought it was really interesting that he used that slang
right
to talk about, outliving Duke, but in the way that cutting contests are it's kind of like you're trying to top each other in a way, right? You're out improving each other. And
it's a chops fest.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought it was really cool. When I heard it, I was like, oh, that's a really interesting, kind of spin on, because it's what he knew, but to him it was used in terms of outliving him and kind of in terms of age instead of prowess.
It was a pretty old term by then. It came up during the bebop era, Charlie Parker era, where you had these ferocious players that could play really fast and through difficult changes and take chorus after chorus, and then the next guy would step up and go, right, and then try to take off from there. So it must have been very fun to do and not as fun to listen to. I think that's kind of where jazz started to lose the public, because before that, jazz was dance music.
All right. Well, the next song is A Chair in the Sky.
I'm sorry. I have a question.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, David. Yeah, go ahead.
Does nobody know who Swede is? Is Swede not an actual person that we know who he is other than his name Swede? Or is he just a Swede, a random Swede? I mean, because that this is that in the transcript he's called Swede.
Swede.
Swede, as in a Swedish person.
I always took it to be a Swede that they didn't know the name of.
Oh, really? I thought it was some guy named Swede. I thought it was a fellow named Swede who we worked with, and I thought surely you'd all know Swede, the jazz musician, but no.
I don't think that's weird. I mean, when you wouldn't necessarily know the names of all the people in the room if it was a impromptu hang.
All right.
Well, maybe that was his moniker, the Swede. He was a fellow musician.
Yeah, I thought it was a musician who went by the name of the Swede, but
yeah, and who happened to be Swedish.
I don't know. I'm like a Z level musician. I don't know half the names of the people that come up to me at shows. Oh, hey, yeah, great to see you. All right. Any thoughts? Other thoughts? Am I missing anybody before we move on? All right. A Chair in the Sky. Who wants to start this one out?
I'm muting here.
Bob.
So, we've talked some about Joni's vocalism on this record. I think Chair in the Sky is her best vocal moment in her entire career. I think if you listen to the instrumental on this record, there's very little cues as to what notes she should be singing, but she hits the perfect note all the way through. And I think, maybe Robin can attest to the fact that the accompaniment to this song and Joni's singing is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
There are really no cues in the music to where she should be singing, yet she hits these notes perfectly. I mean, perfectly.
Can you unmute it?
It is.
Oh, well, isn't she just singing a melody that Mingus wrote?
Yes. Yeah. This is the first one on the record that Mingus wrote,
for her.
For this record, and she wrote the lyrics.
Well, I think that, and here again, I'm not sure if it was Malka's book, but she said this one where really she was concerned whether she could do it, and she certainly came through.
I take your point, Bob, that she's spot on pitch wise. Of course, she always kind of was, but the harmony in this song and in Sweet Sucker Dance is pretty abstracted. So when you get into jazz harmony, sometimes what's called the lower structure is being implied, and so you're only hearing the upper structure, and there's not much to go on if you're expecting your chords to be a foundation like it would be in rock music. So the whole world of how to harmonize chords is something that jazz musicians really devote their lives to. And Herbie, of course, is one of the greatest at that. And so the kind of voicings that he would use, and then you'd have Jocko doing substitutions of the expected bass notes. So you don't necessarily have the root note in the bass either. Mm-hmm. These tunes were very hard to transcribe for me, this and Sweet Sucker Dance, because there was, nowhere to look them up, and I'd have to go bar by bar and work them out. But I had to do it so that we could perform it. But it's a real testament to Joni's tenacity that she didn't just say, "Oh, I don't think I can do this." She just said, "Of course I'm going to do this," and she just worked on it till she had it. And who knows whether I don't know whether she sang in real time with the band or added her vocal on afterwards. My guess is that she sang in real time because there's a whole interaction thing going on, and so it may have been. She wasn't raised on jazz, really. I mean, she was raised, her dad listened to big band music and stuff, but she wasn't raised on modern jazz. And so she was pretty new to it. And this idea of singing a difficult melody over chords you much would have been very challenging. Nowadays, of course, you can go get a degree in this stuff. Mm-hmm. get a degree in vocal jazz from all kinds of places, and this is the kind of stuff that you study. But for her, she was kind of on the front edge of that and had nobody to train her.
Well, and also just putting lyrics to these melodies, and have them. I mean, the lyrics are just brilliant on "Cheer in the Sky." Mm-hmm. I would think that Mingus would just have said, and I think he was very happy with what she wrote to this, but yeah, it's just wonderful image of his life and what he was going through.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and the whole
lyrics to sorry, Bob. Go ahead.
I was going to say the whole concept of writing a song about the things that this person will miss when they're dead and gone from what they enjoyed in their lifetime is such a unique song.
Yeah.
So this is a once in a lifetime song from a once in a lifetime talent.
Mm-hmm. All right, we have Mark, Jahida, then David.
Well, it seems to me that at least up to this point in time, most jazz singers were singing standards and kind of putting a jazz interpretation to it. And with these particular melodies, I mean, these are jazz compositions to begin with. And to me, this is a whole different ball game for her. The twists and turns that the melodies take and the intervals are something completely new and different. And I don't think many singers had done a lot like this. I don't know, I could be wrong, but and yeah, Mingus told her that this particular melody was about the things he was going to miss, and I seem to remember reading that she showed him the lyrics, or she sang it for him, and he said, "You hit it right on," yeah.
Well, you're right. I mean, the American Songbook and these very melodic melodies, in the standards. But this was really jazz. I mean, it was kind of almost improvisation in a melody. It was really. I don't think there were many singers. Now there was that Lambert Hendrickson Ross who did the vocalese and wrote lyrics to solos, which is kind of what she did with Goodbye Pork Pie Hat.
Right.
But just to lay out these lyrics both rhythmically and where the words were placed with the melody, that was just brilliant.
Yeah, I was going to mention Lambert Hendrickson Ross because they did do a lot of vocalese where they were setting lyrics to instrumental jazz. And so they were making these leaps and bounds and different turns of melody and intervals and so forth.
And they may have been, she may have been inspired, because of that, because she had listened and, she did Twisted and so she'd already kind of dabbled in some of these unusual melodic lines that normally you wouldn't have lyrics to,
Yeah.
Well, they were one of her heroes. I mean, she loved Lambert Hendrickson Ross.
I'm even here.
She said they were her Beatles.
Aw. Mm-hmm. All right, so we have Jahida, then David, then Sue. And
I was going to say another vocalese jazz artist is Eddie Jefferson, and he also did a lot of that stuff then. But what I was going to do is piggyback off of what Dave said, and the thing that I found about Joni for myself too is, as a vocalist, and Robin, you can tell me too, it's that I feel like Joni was really good at hearing the overtones. And I feel like that's because she is a pianist. You know what I mean? Like one of the things that I feel like she's really good at is just being able to not only hear what is happening, but what's happening above it, and below it, and just the entire piano. And so I feel like that's the best part of this song, is that she's not limiting herself to just whatever that sort of place is. she's going everywhere. She's using all of the colors, you know, and I feel, and again, like I said, it's the vocalese, you know, she obviously is very influenced by Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross, but certainly I feel like that's a big part of vocalese is being able to not only transcribe but also be able to hear those, you know, Dave, you know, interpolated twos and things in there too, you know what I mean? Like things that are not typically what they hear, which is why I feel like she may not have started out a jazz musician, but she sure as hell got it like that. You know, as soon as she could, her brain thinks that way. And I feel like, you know, we've mentioned this before too. She always was a jazz musician, whether or not anybody else realized it or not.
Right.
I agree that she had she was a very fast learner and adapted to this world of more abstract melody and harmony very quickly. But let's remember that she was given these melodies. She wasn't given a chord progression to then make up a song over. She probably wouldn't have come up with melodies like this if she had, but it began with the melody, and Mingus's harmony was locked into that because that was what he had given her. So the challenge of writing meaningful lyrics that fit the rhythm of the melody and scan properly and aren't just baby, 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 you know, is very difficult to write lyrics into a pre-existing rhythmic structure. And she did that with great skill on this record. So she gets a lot of kudos for that. And then being able to deliver the performances that she did, however many takes it took, it doesn't matter. She was able to make it not sound awkward. And these are awkward melodies that most singers would sound like they're struggling with, but she doesn't. And so that's preparation. You know, she had such good pitch anyway that she could navigate these lines very well, but they didn't sound that alien to her, you know?
Well, when you think about harmonies that she put on some of her songs prior to this, I mean, there were some unusual background harmonies.
There's a lovely
so she has this sophisticated ear, whether she knows what it is or not.
On For the Roses, there's some fantastic vocal stacks that, you know, she'll be singing a major seventh above her melody note. I mean, really strange intervals for what is ostensibly a folk music album, you know. And so she definitely had a liking for dissonance. You can hear it all on things like Roses Blue and A Song to a Seagull. She was no stranger to dissonance, and she really enjoyed what is known as upper structure tones in a scale, and so she was familiar with that. But this was another level. This was not like Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross, which is pretty much jaunty melodies. This is pretty abstract, and so I think she really pulls off an amazing feat here.
All right, David, you're next, then Sue, and then Chris.
I want to say that in addition to the melodies and the clarity of the pitch and the grace of her singing, at first when I was listening to this album again over the past couple of weeks, I really agree with Bob. This is her best vocal work, I think. But I wouldn't have said that, you know, last month. But anyway, it's about the painterliness of her voice. There's a coloration. She you know, she slides and feathers these notes really just beautifully and like just right on the money. Taking the note a little bit off at the end or whatever. I don't know the words for these things, obviously, but I do think I remember her saying that she was singing like a painter. especially on this album, she thought, I'm gonna paint these vocals, and I can really hear that.
All right, Sue.
So I want to talk about the lyrics a little bit, because I mean, how hard is it to write lyrics to a song about a dying man, And the phrase "daydreaming dulls the pain of living." I mean, I was listening to the album the other day, and that lyric just like kicked me. I mean, it's just incredible that she could not only make this beautiful song, and her voice and everything, but the lyrics are incredible too. Actually, in a way, this song was really hard for me when I first listened to it. I really, for a while, it was not my favorite song on the album, probably because it was so, incredibly sad in certain ways, and but incredibly beautiful too. I mean, it's just, she just astounds me. It just over and over and over again. There's so many layers in beauty in these songs. It's just incredible. I mean, I was listening to it a lot, last couple of weeks too, and yeah, I mean, the lyrics, the her voice, the musicianship, unbelievable. So that's all I wanted to say.
Hey, Chris.
I so completely agree with everything everyone has said to this point. I just want to add, this song is a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece because just the bass melody is beautiful. Joni played to the strengths that Charles Mingus probably sought her out for, and I think one of her strongest aspects as a musician is that she is detached from rhythm. I mean, her rhythms are very, very, they're very much part of what she designs, but she can detach what her vocal is doing, where her emotions are headed from what she's playing in a way that nobody else seems to have been able to do, and it's preternatural in my mind, because not only did she do it here, but she does it later on in other records. On Shine, even she's still doing this, where she's creating this diaphanous, vaporous kind of sense of rhythm that she loses and regains and connects in a way that draws beautiful, beautiful roadmap and supports what she's lyrically through her voice. It's a brilliant piece of artistry what she's created on this track. I think it's a masterpiece. I really do.
All right. Does everybody else want to jump in and talk about A Chair in the Sky? Dave.
Yeah, I've been kind of tantalized by the lyrics of this opening verse for many years. First of all, the rain slammed hard as bars. That's an interesting simile. I'm assuming like iron bars is what that means, but it's still an odd image for rain. Then there's Mutts of the Planet, which allegedly comes out of a conversation that she had with Mingus, where they were talking about their heritage, respective cultural heritages, and he said, I'm part this and Cherokee, and I'm part this and African, and she said, well, I'm part Norwegian and part this, and then she said, we're Mutts of the Planet, and that's as I remember where that phrase came from their conversation about their cultural ancestry. And shook me down for alibis. That seems like to come out of nowhere. Now, I don't have any clue really where that comes from, but it's beautiful in a sort of abstract way. But if you try to kind of piece it together in in a linear way what that opening set of phrases is about, I think it's pretty hard to untangle. Anybody been able to do that? Well, it sure gave us a good band name.
Absolutely.
His bars, to me, and this just occurred to me just now. I mean, he's kind of almost imprisoned in this chair in the sky. Manhattan holds me to this chair in the sky, and so the bars are maybe like he's in prison.
Oh, prison bars. Okay.
But shook me down for alibis. I don't know that I ever thought about that much besides just the abstract. I mean, it is beautiful.
The phrase chair in the sky is often used when talking about flying on a plane, but in this case, it's probably in a
high-rise.
in a high-rise apartment building, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's looking out the window and it's raining.
And, I know Joni's singing from the point of view of Charles Mingus, but I just think of the New York City that we saw through Joni's eyes on Song to a Seagull compared to the New York City that we're seeing now. Would it be 10 years later?
That is a stratospheric climb in 10 years to go from that artist to this artist.
Yep. All right, Ruben, was your hand up?
I was just going to say, I agree with Sue. This is such a sad song. And one of my favorite lines has always been daydreaming drugs, the pain of living. And it's the line itself is such a gut wrenching sort of observation. And she sings it in this super pleasant way. It's just this great juxtaposition for me. And I love the two lines, the second one is I'll be resurrected royal, I'll be rich as Standard Oil, and before that it's
I'll be happily
attached to my cold hard
cash. Yeah, I love those two couplets right there. This is a great song. This is one of my very favorite Joni Mitchell songs. It really is.
All right, Jim, your hand was up.
Yeah, Beautiful Lovers, I Never Got the Chance to Kiss. And the way she delivers that, Dave was talking about how she parquets, words to songs and stuff, and he identified, what was the one from last month? The priest sat in the airport bar, he was wearing his father's tie. And this one, well, somebody hinted at this before that, for a dying man, that she really nailed it. And if that was his melody, then she put that very bitter emotion on just the right note.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
go ahead.
It has this kind of wistful feel to it, doesn't it? That beautiful lovers I never had the chance to kiss, Just works perfectly with that.
That's actually a very good example of what I was talking about of the upper structure notes. If I can just, I forget what, it's that chord. No, it might be a whole step down. It's just this lovely chord, and having this sharp 11 on a ninth chord takes it into the upper structure in a really gorgeous way. And so the chord itself has the emotion, and all she had to do was lean into that.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the line, I'm waiting for the keeper to release me, debating the sentence, biding my time.
Yeah. All right, Chris.
I think that vocally, I think she thought perhaps to channel a little bit of Miles into some of these vocals on this record. This song and Sweet Sucker Dance, I think, probably lend themselves more toward that. But this one in particular, I think there things, the way she trails it off, or the way she sort of twists the phrase a little bit, that sort of allow you to follow it just as long as she wants you to, and she maintains control. You don't ever get to finish the phrase in your mind, and I think that's what Miles does when he is singing through his horns.
I do agree that Joni's voice is like really in a great place on this album. It's interesting. If you go forward 6 years, you're on Dog Eat Dog. If you go backward 6 years, you're getting ready to do Court and Spark. So it's just interesting how far she travels in 6 years, forward and backward. Somebody's hand was up. Jack.
Oh, wait. Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to the artwork associated with this song and the album as a whole. You know, I really think her painting sort of really went up a huge notch with this album.
Mm-hmm.
The covers, Sweet Sucker Dance painting, you know, the Chair in the Sky painting. I think the artwork is just really great. Yeah, Mingus in the wheelchair. So anyway, I just had to give a shout out to the artwork.
I'm glad you did, because I totally forgot to talk about the artwork at the beginning. I'm fired as the host. All right, do we have any other thoughts on Chair in the Sky? David.
Sorry, I'm so chatty tonight, but this is a fabulous one. I was going to actually talk about the artwork and say that especially because I found the music so painterly, and the artwork just sort of really matching that very much. I'll just say this. I mean, I'm sure this is only my idiosyncratic personal thing, but the 57th or 59th Street tramway from Manhattan to Roosevelt Island was completed in 1976, which wasn't that long before this. And so just when I think of a chair in the sky with a bird in my ear and boats in my eye, I think of sitting in that tramway that is in New York and goes over the river to connect Manhattan to Roosevelt Island, which I also think, yes, he's in a wheelchair on a window, looking out on Manhattan. And I think that's a lot more likely to be what it's really about. But I just want to keep that in.
All right. Anyone else have any final comments on Chair in the Sky?
Well, we have covers.
Yes, Bob. How many covers were there?
A total of 7. And of course, a couple of these recordings were picked up on by Mingus Dynasty, which was the band that carried on after Mingus's death, recording his songs. So they picked up on this one. They actually picked up on Chair in the Sky, Sweet Sucker Dance. But the first one to do a vocal of Chair in the Sky was a European, Christine Tobin, in 1996. And I will say the Europeans totally get Joni more than Americans do.
Mm-hmm.
They appreciate her whole body of work, 70s, 80s, 90s, whereas Americans are like 68 to 75. That's where they live. Europeans, they're all into all of that. Not so much the 80s. Nobody got the 80s, but we'll talk about that in future events.
Yeah, we are getting there. Chris, what book are you showing there?
This is the center, near the centerfold of the songbook.
Oh,
so you have these photos in your songbook.
I may not. I never saw those. I may be missing the centerfold.
No.
Yeah, but I guess I am.
No, it's no. It's toward the back. Toward the back. After page, it's 50. Starts with page 52.
Okay.
Do you see them?
I was worried.
what they are, if you can, they're hard to see, folks, and I've never seen them shown. But it looks like Joni is actually feeding Charles a glass of wine or something. There's something in stemware. She's allowing him to drink.
I like this picture too, towards the back.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we have one more song on side one, and we do have a performance that we'll be watching via video of Lesson Jahida.
Yay.
So let me share my screen. I'm gonna mute everybody, if I may. All right.
Is it weird that I'm like nervous?
Oh, don't be nervous. It's amazing. I watched it twice. Okay, so the song we're about to dive into here is The Wolf That Lives in Lindsay. And if you're a Joni Mitchell fan, you know. You already know. If you're not, you're about to know. All right. So, share the sound. All right. Thumbs up. Can everyone see? All right. I'm going to start playing. If y'all could give me another thumbs up, just to know the sound's coming through. All right, here we go.
The darkness in men's minds. What can you say that wasn't marked by history or the TV news today? He gets away with murder. Lizards come and go, the stare and glare and buckshot of the heavy, heavy snow. It comes and goes, it comes and goes. His grandpa loved an empire. His sister loved the thief. And Lindsay loved the ways of darkness beyond belief. Girls in chilly blouses. The blizzards come and go. The stare and glare and buckshot of the heavy, heavy snow. It comes and goes. It comes and goes. Cops don't seem to care for derelicts or ladies of the night. They're weeds for yanking out of sight. If you're smart or rich or lucky, maybe you'll beat the laws of man. But the inner laws of spirit and the outer laws of nature, no man can. No, no man can. There live a wolf in Lindsay that raids and runs through the hills of Holly
and the downtown slums. He gets away with murder. The blizzards come and go. The stab and glare and buckshot of the heavy, heavy snow. It comes and goes, it comes and goes. It comes and goes.
That was so good.
Great.
Oh my gosh.
That was great.
Excellent, excellent.
It's
Fantastic.
definitely not the same LA that they're talking about in people's parties, right? Wow. That's one of my favorite Joni Mitchell songs. I love that fucking song.
It's great.
And
Me too.
It's a beautiful tuning too.
yeah, y'all did it justice. That's for damn sure.
It was really nice to see Les playing.
I was
We
just
have-
gonna say, Les worked really hard on it, and I say really hard, but for me it looked like it was really hard. But he picked it up like that. But he is one of those people that's like, you know, I can't do this, and then he does it, and I'm like, obviously you can do it. So, but yeah, I was just so like. I mean, I'm already in love with the man, but that just made it more, like even more so. You know?
That clinched it.
That was it.
I'll admit that I'm a little jealous because I've never met a man that knows anything beyond a case of you. Oh, FML. Okay.
You met Dave Blackburn.
I mean, man,
Brian Thomas.
I mean, a man I've met for a date.
Oh, that's different.
Yeah. Oh, I'd even settle for like a For the Roses guy, you know? It. Okay. Wolf That Lives in Lindsay. Who wants to start on this one? There's a lot to dig into.
Okay, I'll start. I love this song. It's one of my favorites too. The atmosphere that she creates in this is just fantastic. I mean, it's so chilling and menacing, and she told a great story about how she happened to get the tape for the Wolves. She was in the Bay Area for the Bread and Roses Festival and was going to meet Tim Hardin in this hotel, and she went out to look for him, and the person at the front desk wouldn't give her his room number, and some drunk comes across the lobby singing "Why Do Fools Fall in Love," and she went over and sang with him, and two other guys showed up, and they happened to be members of the Persuasions, and so they all sang this little "Why Do Fools Fall in Love," and then she went into the bar and Tim Hardin was in there, and they went up to a party on the 3rd floor of this hotel. And this drunk that was in the lobby happened to be at this party. And I don't know how they got on the subject, but he said, I have a tape of Wolves. And she'd been looking for a tape of Wolves. She'd lain down the track with Don Elias. And she told Henry Louis to find a tape of Wolves. And she said, we need water gongs and wolves to go with us. And it just so happened he had this tape of Wolves, and she used it at the Bread and Roses Festival the next day. She said it was in the right tuning, and it was just perfect. So, but I don't know. I think this song just, it gives me chills, and I love it. It's a perfect Halloween song.
Yeah.
Could be the soundtrack of a slasher movie.
Now I'm going to ask a stupid question because I'm never afraid to be a little ignorant. You know, God Must Be a Boogeyman was a Joni Mitchell composition, and it made sense that it was on Mingus because it was about Mingus. Why exactly was The Wolf That Lives on Lindsay on the Mingus album, in your guys' opinion?
Well, I have this theory about that. And these are the three aspects of Mingus's personality. I mean, God must be a boogeyman. She talks about the one that's in the middle. Chair in the Sky is the one that's so gentle and so sweet. And Lindsay is the one with the rage to kill.
Okay.
That's just something I thought of. I don't know if there's anything to it or not.
All right, Bob, I saw your hand was up.
Yeah, I mean, so she had this song. She had been working for a couple of years prior to the album. And I think she knew that Mingus was going to be a career suicide project for her. And so she went ahead and put this song on the record. I like what Mark said. It makes a lot of sense. I never thought about that, but it does make a lot of sense. But it's like Otis and Marlena from Don Juan. It's a portrait song of someone that is unidentified and that we really don't identify with, as we did with most of our portrait songs. But it's a great song. You know, I think she had nowhere for it to land, and she knew this project was going to be dead in the water, so she threw it on the record.
I think we all agree that it would not have fit on Wild Things Run Fast.
No.
And Dave, don't you know the story of the guitar that she played?
Yeah, she was in the studio without a guitar. Now, don't ask me how Joni Mitchell would go to a recording studio without a guitar, but she was without a guitar, and I think either there was a guitar in the studio leaning against the wall, or she sent a gopher down to Guitar Center to grab a cheap guitar or something. I forget which one it was. And it had a fret problem. One of the frets was, it wasn't set up correctly, and it had this buzz on the bottom string, and she just thought it was awesome because it was so growly and menacing and exactly what she wanted to use for. And so that in itself is painterly. Just, you know, when you're used to nice guitars, to think that this almost unplayable guitar would be perfect is kind of a leap of faith, but nonetheless, that's why it's buzzing, and she decided to feature it instead of hide it.
And she just kind of bangs on that thing.
Yeah.
Well, when you're tuned down to a C, the bottom string flaps and buzzes anyway on a standard guitar, but when not set up correctly, the action's too low, or there's a raised fret or something, then it's really out of control, and she just loved that. She thought it was perfect for the song.
We have David, then Chris.
Yeah, I want to say that at exactly this time, I'm sure at the time this was released, the Paul Winter Consort was doing Wolf songs. So I just want to say it's not entirely original to Joni. The Paul Winter Consort would play Wolf tapes. That's what I thought. How could she have a hard time finding that? Because it was kind of on the radio. And the Paul Winter Consort with the audience howling like wolves and shit like that. Which is not to say this isn't one of my very, very, very favorite Joni tunes.
All right, Chris.
Well, first I'm going to respond to Dave's anecdote about the guitar, only because I'm a little suspect of that, and this is why. I agree that, a low C is going to buzz, and she definitely leaned into it and embraced it, but she is such a stickler for intonation, and she's playing so many harmonics through this song. I can't believe that she was going to be happy with just a guitar that appeared on her lap, that she didn't work with it to work it out. That's how I feel. She spends a lot of time at her kitchen table working on this kind of stuff to really get it, even before she'll lay it down. So I'm a little suspected.
Well, I think it was in the liner notes to Love Has Many Faces where she describes the story. I haven't read it in a while, but I think that's where I did read it. So you might want Right. Well,
I have the liner notes next to me. I'll look them up when I'm not talking.
but of course, harmonics get around the problem of fret problems entirely. So, but she's mostly playing the body of the song. She plays pretty lightly, so that isn't going to bring out the buzz. But when it gets down to the bomb, and then she just lets it rip. And I think that is kind of cool that it's almost like a fuzz pedal that the guitar had built into it. But it's just interesting because she came originally from this very intricate, delicate kind of finger picking tradition, and was moving towards this slap and growl and kind of technique that she kept for the rest of her career.
Maybe that was a roadmap she was laying down for Jocko.
Yeah, I mean, we heard a bit of that on Otis and Marlena, and definitely by Don Juan, she was getting into the slap, brush technique because it was more percussive, and maybe because it was less pretty. It was more driving and less feminine or something. But anyway, she continued to use that for the rest of her career, and then found that when she switched to electric guitars in later years, like the VG8 and things like, it doesn't work. You don't get that out of a digital guitar. So I remember her saying that when you try to slap an electric guitar, the strings bang against the pole pieces on the pickups, and it just makes this boink sound. And so it's a technique that only works on an acoustic.
Yep. And she used it extremely well. I will add my own little anecdote about this song is that I did have an opportunity to meet her in 1990, and we had a fairly good conversation. I took a little bit of her time, and at one point I mentioned to her that I thought I loved the harmonics, and I thought that this was a really brave track on the record, and that I disagreed with her assessment that everybody hated this record. I think it had a lot of fans. So I got my 3 sentences in with her about it.
Well, Dave, I have a question. Those high notes that she plucks, doom, 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 doom. Was that another track that was added later? Was she playing that at the same time she was playing this?
I don't think so. She was just kind of aggressively inserting those. There's multiple sets of harmonics on a guitar. Now, this is in standard tuning, but you have a 12th fret harmonic. Then you got a 7th fret harmonic, 5th fret, and it keeps on going. And so if you grab those aggressively, it just sounds like a bell. But it's pretty nice. It gets really into the upper harmonics, upper structure of the partials of the notes. And in that tuning, it's especially pretty. So most people are going for these 2 harmonics because they're very strong and they're very nice. But when you get into the more abstract ones, you're not even in standard in equal temperament anymore.
Well, it seems to me that towards the end of that song, she's doing that strumming on the low strings, and at the same time is plucking these higher notes. But maybe
well, I can't say for sure, but it's never struck me that was an overdub. But I may be wrong.
Okay.
All right, so we have Jahida, then Jim. But before Jahida talks, I just have to say, nothing was better than Les's face when he was hitting that G string. That's so cute.
It's a C, actually.
Let's see.
I was just gonna say, I think Les would not like me joking about him hitting a G string. But I would say it.
I must have G string on the mind.
Oh, I'm the one with the dirty mind between us. So, well, what I was gonna say, because I am the one who is not the as Brian Thomas calls the German dead eyes of you guys. But I recently was in Vermont, and my best friend. I mean, because we don't live in places where, at least I don't think any of us do, where wolves congregate, because wolves are kind of endangered, right? So, but one of the things that was really, really cool was my best friend lives in the middle of freaking nowhere in Vermont. So there were so many coyotes, and they were just yipping all over the place, and all that stuff. So it kind of like, it was really cool because, I mean, obviously they're not wolves, it's not the same, but it kind of gave that same sort of haunting sound, and I just thought it was so cool. Like, immediately, of course, Les and I were both like, the wolf that lives in Lindsay. So it was just so neat to be around it, because where we live, I mean, we're in Colorado, but we don't have, like, the coyotes don't hang around here, at least not right where we are. So I just thought it was so cool. And again, like, I just think I had no idea about that whole story about Tim Hardin. So that, and about that random dude that had the, recording of it. So this is just fascinating to me. Like, it's one of those things where you're just like, it's kismet, right? Like, and serendipitous, like, things are meant to be sometimes. And so I think, that the idea of those perfectly in tune wolves happen to, be there because it was meant to be. And that's a reason why I think, like, Mark and Jeremy, this is also one of my favorites, and I love, just as we said, the menacing of it, because Joni has this tendency to be menacing, but more about politics, and not really menacingly, like, obvious with people otherwise, right? She certainly, in Hissing Us Summer Lawns, which unfortunately I missed that whole discussion, but the whole discussion about Jose Feliciano, and his treatment of his wife, like, it's menacing, but it's very, very, like, disguised. Whereas here, she's just putting it out there, and I'm really gonna make myself sound like a super basic bitch right now, but I am crazy about true crime.
Oh,
like,
I just watched 6 episodes of 2020 on my day off.
Serial killers are my jam. I don't know. I think it's just fascinating. I'm not planning on becoming one. I just think it's funny. Yeah. And it's great to, like, find out, what the hell makes people tick and snap that way. So to me, this story really lends itself to the idea of, this sort of really sort of murderous person, and somebody who is possibly even maybe a serial killer kind of thing. Right. So it's it really just, it gets into that dark underbelly, which, when you're thinking about the whole overview of the idea of the album and the theme, jazz in general, where was it born? Louisiana, right? So it's this idea of that kind of seedy underbelly happening there. And I mean, I might be taking it too far and going off on tangents, but to me, it's like, this, like I said before, this is how my weird mind works. I just, sometimes things just sort of fit together in weird ways that, like even Joni said, it's not what I intended, but if that's what you get out of it, then that's what you get out of it. And so to me, it's like, I hear this and it takes me places, it makes me think of people that I've heard from back then. And it's just, it's the coolest soundtrack ever.
Jazz thrives at night, and it when all else is silent, that's when it really resonates. And yes, the story of the guitar and the wolves is all in the liner notes for Love Has Many Faces. So,
well, and there was even, talking about serial killers and jazz, there was the Axeman of I believe it was in Louisiana, in New Orleans, the Axeman of New Orleans, and it was in the around the turn of the century, and he would demand that people do not that people had to play jazz, and if they were playing jazz, he wouldn't attack their houses.
Wow.
And if you didn't, though, there are many people who got literally slaughtered to death with an axe if they were in a quiet house in New Orleans at night. So, just things like that just kind of resonate, and it only takes a weirdo true crime person to put those two things together. So.
All right, Jim's next, but I just want to say one thing really quick. Two things. Jahida, we have so much to talk about. And number two, I want to say there are characters in other Joni songs that are equally despicable, like No Apologies comes to mind. But I think in the other songs, you're on the outside looking at them. And I feel in Lindsay, you're on the inside looking out. And that's what makes this song different for me. All right, Jim.
Okay, a couple of comments about why this song is on the album. First of all, it's a really short album, even including this one. And so she needed something in there. And if I remember my stories correctly, she didn't have... Mingus threw a lot in front of her, and some of it she couldn't get into. So she had to find entry points into the ones that she was able to keep. Right. And so, because this is about a dying man, it's kind of a dark album anyway. So this was a great way to use that very dark story, Wolf That Lives in Lindsay. Before I got here, did you guys discuss that Joni felt like she didn't get enough props for this album?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll chuck in my 2 cents anyway. This is Downbeat magazine, which at the time was one of the... My father thought it was the Bible of jazz, but that was just my dad. Anyway, in a review of this, the first sentence in the review is, "This is a wonderful piece of work."
So history has a way of revising itself, right?
Sometimes Joni talks some smack. I think maybe the record company didn't support it in the way that they supported some of those blockbuster albums.
Right.
And her feelings were hurt. And maybe she went into it feeling like it was going to be career poison too. I think she said that before. But
it has been said that the record company did not want her to do this album.
Right, which is like catnip to Joni Mitchell.
Now, is there anybody that actually feels this hurt her career? Because I can't in any way think that. You do, Chris?
Well, of course it did.
I do. I think that a lot of people disappeared from her next record, which was more mainstream.
Yeah, I think starting actually with Hissing of Summer Lawns, she lost a big part of her audience, and it just kind of grew from there. And then Mingus was the last straw. The people who only got into her early stuff, I think she completely lost them.
I think it's interesting though, because if artists keep releasing albums that all sound the same, people also fall off eventually. So it'd been interesting to see what would happen. Dave, I see your hand is up, and then
I first of all, I do agree that this hurt her career exactly as the label predicted it would. I don't think she cared, because how often does Charles Mingus call you to collaborate, or anyone? And so I think she was sure enough in her artistry to go with it. And obviously the previous album, she'd had one foot out the door already, with that too. There were no hits on Don Juan. So I do think that, and I think the 80s were spent trying to find an audience again, because the original audience had kind of left her. And yes, she had some jazz aficionados that respected Mingus, but she didn't do another album like that. So that was kind of a one-off. She had to kind of start from scratch, and I think Larry Klein played a big part in trying to steer her toward things that were current and hip and well, and use the synclavier and the drum machine and all the kind of stuff that was going on in the early 80s was fresh and exciting. I was in that scene myself, and it hasn't aged well, but at the time it seemed like here's where we ought to go. And so I understand why she did it, but it was a diametrically opposite tack from where Mingus had gone. Mingus was always intended to be a one-off, not a new direction, but it inadvertently established her as a bona fide jazz singer forever. And to this day, there are jazz singers that are discovering Joni Mitchell as a jazz singer instead of, because jazz musicians don't listen to music like Joni Mitchell. So, and Herbie Hancock said as much. So when they stumble upon Mingus, they go, oh my God, this is real. She actually could do it. And so people like Tierney Sutton, I think she was one of the ones that actually said that. She said, I never listened to Joni Mitchell's music, or when I had, it had been just her early stuff. So I was gobsmacked to find out that she'd done this album. So I think it established once and for all that she could kind of do anything. And that in itself is worth something. Even if it didn't, and it actually sold fairly well, as I remember. It wasn't a complete flop, but it was definitely a one-off. And if she had decided to become a jazz musician from that point on, she might have garnered a new audience. But I think she realized that she had done pretty good considering these tunes had been written for her. But if she had tried to make a jazz record by herself, she didn't really have the knowledge to do that.
She did both sides now. That was a lot of jazz.
Well, those were tunes from her parents' era that she loved. So yes, it's true that as a singer, she was able to sing jazz again, finally, 20-something years later. But I'm talking about as a writer. She was never going to write jazz. She could dabble in it, but this was a golden opportunity for her to work with Mingus and would never come again.
Yeah. I hope I'm not interrupting somebody, but
no, you were next, and then Sue.
Okay, great. Miles Davis lost people when he stopped playing ballads, and Joni was not everyone, but Joni was in the box of a chick with guitar, and women tend to get pigeonholed even more than men do.
Okay.
Pardon me?
I'm just being an ass. I was saying you don't say.
Hey, as an old guy, I should get some credit for saying that, because 30 years ago, no one would have been saying that stuff.
Except Joni.
Right. So that's what I'm saying, is that Joni was hanging out with Wayne and Herbie and like talking to Miles and trying to get him on her record and trying to sing on his record and all that stuff. So, I mean, she was hanging out with this painter who said, don't look at the canvas. Just, put strokes on the canvas without looking at it and stuff like that. So she was conditioned to be fearless. I mean, she was fearless anyway, but she was hanging out with people who didn't mute that. I'm looking at the mute button, saying the word mute.
All right, Sue.
Okay, everybody's saying such great stuff, but nobody mentioned the snow. Snow. So, like, is it a symbol? Is it just part of the chilly atmosphere of the song? Is it cocaine? Is it? I mean, I just wonder about the snow. And when it says the glaring buckshot, that's when cold snow hits you in the face. So you know that for if you live in Ithaca, but or in Canada, I guess.
I have it muted over here.
Or Fredonia, New York.
Right? But it's just an incredible image to me. I mean, she repeats it through the whole song, and what is this? What is the story? The story is, gangsters in Hollywood. Is it just one person who's got this incredible rage inside of them? Where does the snow come in? It's just part of the atmosphere, that she writes into the song. So I find it really interesting.
I think it might be Sweet for 20G too. She had a bunch of lines and she gathered all the spooky ones and put them into a song. And so as a Dylan asked, no, David's saying definitely not. But as like Dylan did that stuff too. That he got a lot of room for being the stream of consciousness, and everybody goes, huzzah, Bob, isn't he wonderful, right? And so Joni gets licensed from me.
He wrote Tweeter and the Monkey Man, which also had a sister who loved a thief. So I think maybe he ripped it off of Joni. I don't know.
I do feel like if Jira was 20 degrees, this one was minus 20 on the snow scale.
Well, I think it could be cocaine, Sue, but I think it is the individual, this person, a psychotic person who has these outbursts of anger or whatever the hell it is, and like stabs or whatever the prostitutes or the poor transients or whatever.
The weeds?
The weeds, yeah. But I just wanted to say one thing about the music and about jazz. I think up to this point, Joni had been perceived as, oh, Joni's into jazz. And she wasn't really a jazz musician. She was using jazz players because they could play what was in her head better than anybody else and were more flexible. But this is the point where she actually got into real jazz. Mm-hmm. Like you said, it was a one-off. And probably a lot of people perceived it as, oh, Joni's going to be a jazz singer or a jazz musician. And a lot of people, I think, too, thought she was, a dilettante dabbling in this kind of stuff. And then her old audience just wasn't into it at all. And so they just kind of fell away. And it was 2 or 3 years, wasn't it, before Wild Things Run Fast came out? And I think she kind of took some time trying to figure out where the hell she was going to go next.
Mark, I think I don't disagree with you on that. I do think that she suffered the disappointment of Hissing of Summer Lawns, where her audience didn't follow her. They didn't get it. They blamed her for it. They was, the record company was angry. It was a whole, it was a bad experience for her. So she probably figured, all right, I've got this great opportunity. I've already suffered that indignity. I might as well take it. Now, she proved herself bona fide jazz singer. There's no doubt about it at all. This is the album that I said to myself, where did she get that voice? Which is what Dylan didn't say until Both Sides Now. How many years later? But this, I agree with you so much, Mark. This is where she completely threw herself completely in and proved herself a jazz musician.
And the Hissing of Summer Lawns actually sold pretty well. And I think this was the first of her records since the first one, but did not go gold.
You still want to talk?
Yeah, but the critics just raked her for the Hissing of Summer Lawns. They just were so nasty to her. She's still smart about it, I think.
This one had a few nasty reviews too. I mean, There were some good ones. She wasn't right. Not all of them were horrible, but there were some nasty ones too. Rolling Stone, I thought, was kind of condescending, and that review was not good. I didn't like it.
All right, so we have David, then Jahida. Chris, is your hand up, or is that from before?
No, that was from before.
Okay.
Sorry.
So David, then Jahida. Jack, was your hand up also?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the next three, and then we'll go on from there.
Okay, I just want to ask about the tour that came right after this album, which was, I think, really successful, wasn't it? So I'm a little bit confused about her thinking, or any of us thinking, she lost her audience with this, when in fact she went on a really critically acclaimed and well attended, a really popular tour after this.
Maybe she wasn't the top draw for some of the audience. I mean, maybe people were coming to see Pat Metheny or Randy Brecker or any of the other folks.
I don't think people would have packed those, outdoor amphitheaters like Joni did.
Altogether, possibly.
All right, Jahida.
I was just gonna say, hell, if I was alive at that time, I would have been there.
Yeah, I know.
Even without knowing Joni Mitchell at the time, I would have been like, "Are you shitting me with this like backing band?" So, but anyway, I was gonna say, and actually, Robin, I was wondering too, because Joni, I feel like she does, have this jazz mentality, but her voice is not the typical jazz singer voice. She's not, she's very on top of the note all the time. You know what I mean? She doesn't seem to do this sort of, I hate to say this, but as somebody who sings standards, you know what I mean? I feel like you're always trying to make the standards sound new in some way, and imbue some sort of emotion and your kind of thing in there. And I feel like the thing with Joni's these albums is she's emotional in a different way. It's not that because it is her words, it's not a standard. It's her lyrics that she is singing it in her style. So again, she's very, she really is, like I said, she's running the gamut of notes and being able to get all these harmonics that are amazing, but she is not singing like a jazz singer in that respect, where she's not doing cutesy little turns. She's not using any melisma really at all. So I don't know. Robin, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I can see what you're saying.
Okay. I just feel like there, she doesn't have any, and maybe this is me, I just rely on this much, but there's no vocal fry. There's nothing in there that's really warming those notes as much as, like when I hear her, when I have to sing those things, I'm more on those notes. I'm sitting on top of them, as opposed to coming from, a more, I guess, I don't know, a intimate place. I can't, if I could bring you all into my head, it'd be great, but I don't do that.
Well, I'm not a singer, so, but I've got a question for both of you guys.
And let's get to Jack first. He's been patient.
Well, that I can wait, but I mean, the main thing I just wanted to me, The Wolf That Lives in Lindsay is probably about as ballsy of a song as Joni's put out there. You know, I kind of liken it to the Jungle line on the Hissing of Summer Lawns, where it's like just completely out. You know, it's like, holy shit, where did this come from?
Right.
And you know, to me, the correlation between those two albums is pretty great. You know, where Joni really took a major turn with Hissing of Summer Lawns, and you know, to put something as experimental as the line on it, and then you know, to go off the deep end again, at least as far as commerciality goes, with Mingus being a very, I think, ballsy album, and this song kind of takes the cake as far as
All right. Go ahead, Robin. Well, Chris and Robin.
Is that oh,
Mike, do you want me to go first? Robin, you
sure.
Go first. Well, my question for all the chirps in the room are whether or not these songs really, if they truly lend themselves to an interpretation like a standard. And in some ways, like I think the next song that we're going to talk about after the next rap, Sweet Sucker Dance, sort of displays what I think most of the songs on this record have, which is the use of, I mean, she's the solo in that song, in Sweet Sucker Dance. So in some ways, I kind of feel like she's a horn here. There's a, you know, and I keep bringing up the Miles thing again with whether or not she's bringing him into this without him being there.
All right, Robin.
Sandwich? What? You want your sandwich? Okay. You want the whole thing or just half?
somewhat influenced by Mingus's writing, because some of the intervals and the melodies in The Wolf That Lives in Lindsay and God Must Be a Boogeyman, you know, there's some pretty interesting intervals there. So, you know, she may have been influenced just from his selections for her.
But they were saying that she had Wolf for a couple of years already.
Oh, she did? Okay.
And was looking
I missed
for.
that.
Bob was saying she was probably like looking for an opportunity to use it.
Mm-hmm.
I can't picture it on any other album but this one.
Oh, I could see it on Don Juan.
Okay, fair enough.
I would say, as somebody who's sung a lot of standards, Wolf would not be your typical kind of standard. I mean,
no.
It would be the thing that you bring out and people are like, huh? You know, it's for specific audiences only. But Sweet Sucker Dance, 100%. That's a lot more, you know, along standard lines and
But the form of it isn't.
No.
What Lindsay is AABA, so it actually does borrow from the standard form, but Sweet Sucker Dance is a much more difficult form to get your head around.
I think I'm thinking in terms of the story, because so this is the thing where you and I really differ, Dave, is that I think in terms of more like lyrics and the story and stuff, you know, singing it.
Yeah.
Where, you know, as opposed to like the, you know, technicality of the music behind it, you know, and the form and things like that. And it's, and Lord knows, I mean, I've written a song that does not follow standard forms, you know what I mean? But the idea is like, I'm thinking in terms of standards, in terms of the whole, you know, telling the story. I think Sweet Sucker Dance is a lot more along those lines.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. But in the other sense of the word form, where it's literally how it's pieced together, it's fairly abstract. I haven't looked at the chart in a while, but it takes a long time before anything that you've heard before comes around again.
Yes, agreed. I mean, it's a genius song, you know.
I guess if it was a standard, it would be on the lines of Mac the Knife or something.
Yeah, I mean, you're just, it's sometimes you really, and I think this is more of like a vocalist thing sometimes, where you really want to know, like, what kind of story am I telling? Where do I want to go with this? And I feel like that a lot of times, yes, Joni is really motivated by her chords of inquiry. I mean, I say that all the time, but her music, you know what I mean? And then especially in this album, it's because she's got those melodies from Mingus. But I think a lot of times too, it's like, well, what story does she want to tell, right? Especially in a song, something like Coyote, right? She wants to tell that story, and it's about, telling the story in her way, which is a way that I wish I could tell it, because her vocabulary is in a league unto its own. But it's that whole thing, right? Like, being both a musician and a singer, which I have to say, like, or an instrumentalist and a singer, as I should say, which I like, am in awe of people like that, because I am not that person. I'm a singer. I'm not an instrumentalist. Nobody wants to hear me try and play anything. You know what I mean? So to be able to split that brain into that many kind of, ways is awesome to me, in the truest sense of the word, and that's the thing I think that makes me so just enamored with Joni in general, is that, not only she has this freaking ridiculous vocabulary and finds the perfect words to say what, she means and how she feels. And it's not like, I felt really happy, you know what I mean? Or I was really sad, which is what my 13-year-old self wants to write. But she manages to put these amazing chords and moods behind it that just perfectly encapsulate what you're feeling. It's just this whole thing. And I feel like, that's why when I say she's a jazz musician, that's why. Because the other person I can think of that does that is Esperanza Spalding. And she does it all. You know what I mean? She has managed to marry those things together. And so, and of course I gravitate towards her because, she's freaking ridiculous. But I feel like that's a skill I wish I could have. And that I am just envious, but yet feel so lucky that I'm here at the same time that they're doing shit like that. You know what I mean? And
believe that if you can recognize it, you can do it, Jahida.
Oh, hell no. Have you heard me try to do anything? Hell no.
Believe if you can recognize it, you can do it.
All right. So do we have any other parting thoughts on The Wolf That Lives in Lindsay? Anybody?
Third song.
Mark.
I just thought the addition of the water gongs was kind of fascinating, because I didn't even know what the hell a water gong was until I looked it up. And apparently it's a gong that you strike it and then you lower it halfway into water, and it bends the note. And that's that eerie kind of sound you hear all throughout the song. And really adds to the atmosphere, I think.
We need an encyclopedic reference on water gongs. Dave Blackburn?
I'm not encyclopedic about anything. I know a little bit about Emil Richards, who played them, but water gongs are a pretty rare thing on a record, at least a jazz record. So, but maybe by this point, Don Elias had introduced her to his percussion buddies, which would have included Emil Richards, and so she may have gone to see a performance or two in New York of those guys doing what they do. So it's de rigueur for percussionists to collect all kinds of noise-making things. They have cases and cases of objects that make interesting sounds, and that would be one of them. So she may well have heard it in a performance or on a record and said, I need to have that.
All right, Bob, how many people covered this one?
None, zero, nada. So let's move on.
The water gong is created in 6 sizes, each with its own unique qualities.
Go, Chris.
No, but this is somebody trying to sell water gongs. This
Is
isn't
that
an
water gongs
explanation.
or water bongs?
Yeah.
I'll keep walking.
Gongs, dongs, or bongs? Which one? All right, we're going to take a little 5-minute break. All right, we are back from Phonogenics 101. And first of all, I'd like to thank all the YouTube subscribers. My podcast channel is about to exceed my musician's channel, so I guess I've been wasting the last 20 years, 30 years, whatever. And I'd also like to thank my Patreon subscribers. I'm currently at $99 a month, so anyone watching, consider donating $1 or $2 a month. It holds me accountable, because as I get busier and I always want to cancel everything, I don't. I try to be loyal. So, we are here talking about Mingus Side 2. And it's been, what album are we on? 9, 7, 8?
10.
10. It's finally, I'm going to perform for you guys. Eyes a Muggin'. Eyes a Muggin', boom ba di da, bam ba da da, wee boo wa da wa. Eyes a Muggin'. There we go. That's my contribution.
All right. And so that was the only rap that was ever covered. It wasn't really a cover, but when Joni's Jazz appeared in Central Park in 2000, PM Dawn showed up at this concert.
What time?
And they said,
8?
here's
This
our
is going
Joni Jam. And they played Isa Muggin. And they did a 10-minute rap freestyle version against Isa Muggin on this concert. It was pretty cool.
I've always wanted to take.
I'm embarrassed to say I was there and I don't remember that. Wow.
Yeah.
I want to take that acapella and make a techno song out of it. It may happen still. It may happen.
And the other Isa Muggin joke I'll make was years ago on the Joni Mitchell list. I said, if you're going to run to Joni's music, what do you want to run to? And one guy said, Isa Muggin is 7 seconds long.
Well, that actually was based on an old song by somebody named Stuff Smith.
Snuff Smith, yes. In fact, the Artist Choice series, Joni did one, Willie Nelson did one, Johnny Cash did one.
Oh, yeah.
Bob, I believe that song is on Bob Dylan's.
Okay.
So it's out there.
All right, don't hold your breath, everyone, because I'm about to perform in a couple more months when I do my version of Smokin' Empty, Try Another. All right, so Mingus Side 2, Sweet Sucker Dance, one of the longest songs in Joni's catalog, right? I mean, obviously, Paprika Plains is the longest, but this song clocks in over 8 minutes. And this is one of the songs that took me a while to get into it. And then once it got under my skin, it just stayed there forever. I love this song. And I presume we have much to say about it. Who would like to start this discussion? Chris?
Have you ever? This song goes way beyond Down to You in describing the complex feelings of having a one-night stand, a revenge one-night stand. This song is so intense. That's how I have to start off. Lyrically, this grabbed me like, I mean, in places I have rarely been grabbed. This was wild.
Well, if it's about one-night stands and it grabbed you, you must have been grabbed in a few places. All right. You can tell we're getting the second half here, right? This is why we usually cut it off after side 1.
I mean, she gets deep into, this is again this song has nothing to do with Charles Mingus that I can see. This song exists on its own. It is, I don't disagree with you, Jahida. I hear a standard I believe that this, and Bob will have to bear us out when we get to talk about covers, but I want to believe that this song is worthy and has been covered by a lot of folks, because it's an adult, knowledgeable, emotional piece that comes from a deep place of somebody trying hard to understand themselves and their own motivations. So again, I think this is one of her strongest pieces of writing in terms of the content. If not structure or melody or anything like if this is Mingus's melody, but in terms of the content of what she brought to the song, I think it's incredibly strong.
All right, we have Jahida and then Mark in the lineup.
Well, just very quickly, I would say it's the words, the lyrics are very much a torch song, right? It's got that kind of quality to it, but the structure is not, and so barring Joni, I feel the person I wish I could hear singing this would be like a Sarah Vaughan, and I feel like she would. I know that's kind of cliche, but man, nobody could sing a torch song like that woman, So to me, it's just like, I feel those lyrics, no one but Joni could kind of give you that hope and shame at the same time when it comes to love and being vulnerable. And this song really mixes all of those emotions, like you said, Chris, very emotional, and she's the master of it, so yeah. This is one of those songs where you're in the car and boy are you singing the hell out of this one. So it's that's the kind of song for me, for sure. This one, it makes you just think, you're like, okay, remember that person kind of thing. So, and that's one of the things I think that I wish people, granted, we have talked about this album being widely accessible. I feel like, as we've been talking about the fact that she's kind of coming into this renaissance with her albums, I feel like this is one of those songs that people are going to hear and really kind of glom onto because of its content.
I definitely did used to sing along. I used to have a falsetto, and I used to sing along to this in the car, but I'm in my turbulent indigo range these days. Mark, and then Chris.
I don't get the shame part of this. I don't get the one night stand. She starts off saying, I almost closed the door, canceled on everything we opened up for, which to me sounds like she's talking about a relationship that she's been in for a while. And then she kind of goes on with a theme that she's explored a lot about how love, love, we can't live without it. Why do we go out and get it just to turn around and doubt it, like we're scared to care? She's talking about these positive and negative aspects of being in a relationship and of love and of having these feelings of doubt. And at one point she says, you're such a sweet love, you're a proud man, you're a treasure, time passes gracefully, living can be such a pleasure. And she's talking about the good relationship, about the good times in a relationship. And where are you getting this business about a one night stand? I want to know.
I take the fact that she describes, since I was fool enough to find romance, I'm trying to convince myself this is just a dance.
I almost closed the door.
Yeah.
canceled out everything we opened up for. In other words, she sort of she put herself in the headspace to go and flirt her way into this thing she can't get out of now, and now she's trying to justify it as if it doesn't mean anything, and she's going to go through with it.
Am I a sucker to love you?
She sees no other way.
Well, yeah, she's having doubts. No, definitely, and she's seeing both the positive and the negative aspects. But to me, it's a relationship that she's been in for a while. That's the way I see it, and she's tonight the shadows had their say. You know, tonight I'm having these bad feelings. And it's my solo while you're away.
They had their say. This is my solo while you're away. I'm performing.
If she's saying while you're away, then she's in a relationship with this person. That's what I think. No,
I agree, Mark.
I'm here right now, so I'm.
There's really no right or wrong. I mean, this is Joni. Whatever you take away from it is what is right.
I have to shut my dog up. You
have to almost close the door. I did also always think of it as a relationship too. Okay, Bob.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see it as a one night stand as much as like Mark and some of you see it as a longer term relationship. And I guess overridingly, imagine getting this melody from Charles Mingus sent to you to write words to, and she comes up with these amazing words on this song, which I really, up to now, preparing for this discussion, I didn't appreciate. But reading through them, they're pretty incredible. We're dancing fools. Tonight's a dance of insecurity. It's my solo, blue way, shadows have the saddest things to say. I mean, let's just like poetry set against a line of music that was sent to you from a jazz legend. So it's very courageous, and it's an amazing piece of music.
I always kind of felt like life is a circle game and love is a sweet sucker dance. All right. Anyone else want to jump in about Sweet Sucker Dance?
It has some of the most beautiful chords on the album. Whatever Mingus wrote was very hip.
Can you play?
Not from memory. But this doesn't have the same flavor as Pork Pie Hat, which came out of the 50s. There was a certain kind of harmonic language going on in New York in the late 50s where almost all the chords are dominant chords, which are associated with blues. By the late 70s, that was not apparent in this song. So even though it was the same composer, he was using a different kind of a prettier language. And like it was only a dance. That's a lovely cadence. They're going into a new key. And so yeah, I was very drawn to both the words and the chord progression. What was it like to sing for you? Did you enjoy this melody?
Oh yeah, it's fun.
Well, Dave, I think you and I maybe emailed about this, but you said, and I thought too, that this was the song that was the most successful on the record of fulfilling the concept of making the vocal another instrument and weaving it in with the rest.
Yeah, I think I would still feel that, agree with that. Despite the fact that the album opens with a bass solo, there are very few, give the boys their 32 bars kind of breaks on the album, and she she gave herself the wordless vocal ad lib things over these chords on a couple of these songs. I think Chair in the Sky, she does it, and I think she does here too. And it's very effective. You know, she never leaves the stage for the guys to take over, and that was deliberate because she just did not want to be a standard format jazz singer where you sing the melody and then 5 minutes later you come back and sing the melody again. So I think she thought a lot about her particular role in this ensemble that she was putting together. Anyway, it's a very, even though it's a long song and it's rather opaque in its form, it's very gripping in how beautiful the melody is, and the lyrics are compelling too.
Well, like you said, the melody is almost like free form. You go a long way before you hear the same thing repeated again.
Yeah, that's sort of known as through composed, where it's not based on repetitive or repeating sections. There are moments where, like, it was only a dance. We definitely hear that 2 or 3 times.
Right.
So there are little moments where you can go, oh, okay, there's a hook, but it's a long space between them.
But to me, that seems more like an instrumental part in a jazz piece than, say, a popular song or a standard.
I think that harkens back to Mingus wanting to do T.S. Eliot's quarters, though, right? Or what is it?
Or quartets.
Quartets.
Quartet.
Sorry.
Or quartet.
Because T.S. Eliot is not known for following a standard of poems, right? Like, he's known for having a very odd cadence to his poems and odd kind of form in general. You know, I mean, you read it and you're just like, okay, what? It's all over the place. So at least that's what I remember from junior year English. So, but I think that if I can jump in and talk about this, I think it's really interesting. I want to kind of break down the lyrics a bit. And, you know, again, Joni is kind of a wizard with vocabulary and with saying things without explicitly saying things. You know, and I mean, she talks about it being a dance, right? And just like we talked about before, you know, it's about, yeah, she says dance, but really it's more about coupling. And I'm saying that in the nicest way possible, right? Coupling in bed. And so, you know, she talks about, I'm trying to convince myself this is just a dance. And she says, we move in measure. And first of all, I also have to throw it in there, but I freaking love alliteration. And she does it in this, you know, greedy and nonchalant, greedy and gracious. And I'm like, yeah. And as a vocalist, those are like, alliteration is just like candy, you know? So, but then she kind of talks about, you know, petty dismissals, grand embraces, like it was only a dance. And when you think about it, right? Like, I mean, and maybe I'm giving a little TMI here, but you know, there are moments where
What's TMI?
Too much information.
Oh yes, too much information, Robin. Where maybe one side is going through those, you know, moments because they thought it was only a dance, but it was not for one half, right? So you're going through those petty dismissals, you know, and the grand embraces. And then right after that, she goes, we're survivors. You know, some get broken, some get mended. Some can't surrender, they're too well defended. And Lord knows it took I mean, again, TMI, it took a long time to break down those Jericho walls, right? And to let someone in, because you're that person who says it's not just the dance, right? And so she goes through these whole things, and you know, she comes back again. We're dancing fools, you and me. Tonight it's a dance of insecurity. And again, it's like, who's the insecure one? Because I don't know what it is about, and I feel like this is the kind of the crux of Joni in a lot of ways. She has, you know, always had a problem with loving so much and finding love with so many men that don't repay that same intensity. And she, you know, and she has that struggle, you know, do I want to be that vulnerable person and give myself up, or do I want to be, you know, the musician that's in control of herself? And you know, like the whole thing about her grandmother, you know, I don't want to just let myself not fulfill my destiny, you know? And so I feel like this song, while it's certainly, you know, Mingus's melody, she really took this and made this a beautiful, intimate song about the reality of love and heartbreak in a lot of ways. And you know, so we can say, Chris and I can say, well, it's a one night stand, you know? And I think for me, I feel like that can be a thing, because a lot of times, you know, sometimes, and I feel like with Joni, she's had a lot of loves, you know? So it's like, she may have had those, you know, oh my God, really intense, you know, hot ash, or wait, hot blazes turn into smoke and ash. You know, and so I feel like that's kind of part of it. She found a lot of those, and this is her way of finally getting to a point where she is able to write it down and is able to describe that feeling. And that's why I think it's just a masterpiece of a song for not just Joni, but I think in just terms of a jazz standard. And it really should become a jazz standard, because oh my God. So anyway, yeah, this song is phenomenal for sure.
All right, Sue.
So, do people slow dance anymore? You know, I mean, I went to that gala out in San Francisco with the Jonis, you know, for the award show that Joni couldn't go to because she had the brain aneurysm. It was terrible. But we had the tickets, we went, right? So I had to wear a gown for the gala. So I ordered this gown, it had all the sparkles on it and everything, and I put it on, and I put on this song. And I was like, I felt so amazing. So it's like you should slow dance to this song. Like when you're madly in love with somebody, even if they don't love you back. But it just seems like this incredible, you know, like all of the feelings that go through you when you're like, you know, swaying to music like this in a gorgeous dress. You know, I mean, I agree with the Torch song thing. That's what it sounds like to me too. But I don't know. I love this song so much, and whenever it comes on, I just get this feeling like I want to be, you know, and I hear all the pain in it too. But there's something about, you know, having that type of love affair where you're like, broken, you know, and slow dancing, and okay, maybe this is the last time we're going to do this, you know. But you know, that's how I feel when I hear the song, and you know, and Mingus was, you know, I knew about Mingus when I heard this album. I mean, I had heard the version of. I was going to talk about this later, but the version of John McLaughlin's version of "Goodbye Pork Pie" had on his, you know, my dream. What's the name of the album? My Goals Beyond. You know, and Mingus was always like so incredibly beautiful to me. You know, just as the music on a bunch of the albums that I had listened to, and I don't know. I mean, I get twisted over, like, I really love all the songs on this album, but this song is really special to me. I mean, it really takes me to a different place. Yeah. And you know, it's like where they talk about the survivors, you know. I mean, it's sad, but you know, I kind of know from that stuff, you know. So it really it really hits me. Huh?
Said heard that.
I just think the opening line sets up the whole mood.
Yeah.
It's just this beautiful. I almost closed the door. Just gorgeous.
All right, Chris, was your hand up?
It is. Only because, you know, well, you know, Joni never writes from her own experience, but where was she with John Guerin at this point? Were they past? I mean, because Don was in the picture now, or what was going on? Only because the reason, and I keep, you know, maybe I'm just trying to prove my own point, which was if she was reacting in a revenge kind of way or trying to talk to her lover who had, you know, philandered her already, and she was, you know, trying to find her own justification through the lyricism of, you know, through the lyrics of this poem. Was John Guerin potentially a source for that? Anybody know? Chronologically,
I've always thought it was Don Elias, but I suppose it's possible. I don't know. You're a proud man. You're a treasure. I don't know.
I just kind of think by this point in her life, she'd had enough. I mean, not that she was sated, but that she had had enough experience that she could certainly write this without it being anybody in particular.
I wouldn't doubt that.
She could have had the idea or the concept, though, kicking around in the back of her head, though, Chris. That's true. Because I think Guerin was a little bit before this, but not that far.
Right.
I vaguely remember Les telling me about someone that contacted him that she had a dalliance with in kind of the midst of Don Elias. Ooh. And so she had gone somewhere. I wish she was here and he'd tell you the whole story, but I just hear these things kind of randomly. But yes, he did buy it for like $1 or so. Anyway, he was telling me the story about some guy that she had ended up going to a tropical island or something, and he ended up hanging out with her. He didn't even know who she was, and he hung out with her. And, but when she came home, Don Elias was like super pissed about it because he found out. So, but that's the thing. I think that's what I'm saying. Like during this whole thing, I feel like that was in essence Joni. Like I felt like she, in one part of her, wanted to be pinned down, so to speak, and then the other half of her was like, hell no, I'm not going to be fucking pinned down by any dude, you know what I mean, because that's not my destiny. And so I feel like this song was that kind of, you know, duel of the fates, so to speak. You know, is she going to be, you know, that, is she going to let herself be vulnerable, or is she going to, you know, be Joni fucking Mitchell that's not gonna let some man tell her like tie her down kind of thing.
She loves her loving, but not like she loves her freedom, right?
Exactly.
But it's so crazy that in the, she's got all this ambiguity and melancholy and stuff happening now on this album, and within a year and a half or so,
she's Solid Love is right around the corner.
Completely madly in love with Larry and writing this exuberant album that people said, oh, she's faking it, or that's not sincere or whatever. What a change that was.
Seeing the photos, it was sincere.
It just wasn't good. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say that?
You bite your tongue. Because I love that album.
I like Chinese Cafe. All right. Anyway. Oh, I like some of the songs. Next month's gonna be fun. Anyone else? Sweet Sucker. Is this the second longest song in her catalog after Paprika Plains?
How long was Down to You?
Song to Sharon.
I thought Song to Sharon is longer, yeah.
Or Don Juan's Reckless Daughter, that's...
Yeah, it's
I
pretty
like that.
All right. Any other thoughts on this song before we move on? Bob, is it a standard?
It's not a standard by any means, and it never will be. The 7 covers, like some of these Mingus Dynasty, Charles's legacy band, covered it in 79, end of the year. The first vocal version was in 1996. 1999, Peggy Chu, a Japanese jazz vocalist, did it.
Mingus Dynasty put out an album. I think it was probably 79, and it was called Chair in the Sky.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It had several of the songs from Mingus on it.
Yeah, they covered a lot of these songs on the record, Mark.
Are the Mingus compositions often done without a vocal?
Well, certainly Goodbye Pork Pie Hat, which we'll get to, maybe. But the rest of them, no. Only a couple of, because they were compositions for Joni.
I just jumped through the Wikipedia, and this is the 3rd longest song of Joni's catalog, with Paprika Plains, of course, number 1, and Song for Sharon, number 2, and then Sweet Sucker Dance, number 3. The trilogy,
Okay,
baby.
there you go.
I think Coming from the Cold must be up there too. That's a long one.
Yeah. I think that one was like in the later 6 minutes.
No, I'm looking it up. 7 minutes, 30 seconds.
Oh, 7:30. Okay, cool. And I know Job's Sad Song is a longer one too, but all right, before we move to the next song, I think we need to talk about the Mingus perm a little bit. Any thoughts on the Mingus perm versus the Dog Eat Dog perm?
I remember
I had a perm like that too in 1979.
I think the Mingus perm was the tour perm, that she needed to be seen, from a really big distance. I can't explain the doggy dog perm.
All right.
Let me put it this way. No.
Dave.
I hopefully this is a better question. Do we know, has that tape that Mingus made for Joni ever surfaced anywhere?
Oh, right.
I mean, that talk about an archive find. That would be actually more interesting than the alternate versions that she recorded, to actually hear the source tape that she learned these melodies from.
And I'd love to hear the ones she didn't
to
pick.
A JMA near you.
Yeah.
She must have it. She must have it.
Well, yeah, and what an interesting thing to hear.
Yeah, that would be
because anybody who's ever taken raw material and tried to mold it into something finished, it's a fascinating process, and Mingus himself couldn't really speak or play at this point, so he was having to somehow dictate it to a piano player who was trying to either notate or record what Mingus wanted, and then it goes onto a cassette and then sent to her. She must have really had to decipher this, what Mingus was giving her. It wasn't probably a great recording, and it may have been choppy and stop and start and stuff. Who knows? Anyway, I don't know anything about the perm, but I am interested in that.
Absolutely. I'd love to hear the 3 songs that she chose not to put words to.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Even more than the perm.
Archive 3.
Yeah. All right. Y'all are doing pork pie, correct?
Yeah. Would you mind if we did it sooner, since we're getting a little tired? But
yeah, we can break the format.
Is that okay? Okay.
Yeah, let's pause for a second.
All right, so.
When Charlie speaks of Lester, you know someone great is gone. The sweetest swinging music man had a Porky Pig hat on. A bright star in a dark age, when the bandstands had 1,000 ways of refusing a black man admission. Black musician, in those days they put him in an underdog position. Sellers and chitlins, when Lester took him a wife. On and on went black and white, and some saw red and drove them from their hotel beds. Love is never easy. It's short of the hope we have for happiness, bright and sweet. Love is never easy street. Now we are black and white, embracing out in the New York night. It's very unlikely we'll be driven out of town, or be hung in a tree. That's unlikely tonight. These crowds are happy and loud. Children are up dancing in the street. In the sticky middle of the night, summer serenade of taxi horns and fun arcades. We're right around under neon. Every feeling goes on for you and me. It's a history book and the circus down in this clown, balancing dreadful and wonderful perceptions they have been handed day by day, generation on down. We came up from the subway on the music. Master saxophone and taxi horns and brakes. Now Charlie's down in Mexico with the healer. So the sidewalk leads us with music to 2 little dancers dancing outside the black bar. There's a sign up on the awning. It says Pork Pie Hat Bar. And there's black babies dancing
Wonderful.
Nice. Oh.
All right, I'm gonna have to be eloquent and give that a fuck yeah. Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
Amazing. It froze up for like 2 seconds, but then it jumped back in.
Oh.
Oh my goodness.
And they're great.
Oh, well, I think I'm done for the night. That's like good sex. Like, what do you do after that? Cool. Well, jumping back into the album, Dry Cleaner from Des Moines. Who here has been to Des Moines before? Anybody? Mark? Why don't you start us off on this one? Tell us about Des Moines.
It's been a long, long time ago. I was raised in Iowa.
Okay.
I don't know what to say about this song. It's a lot of fun. I think Bob maybe said once that this was Joni's Farmer's Market. It's kind of comparable to what Annie Ross did. I don't know. And Des Moines, like I said, it's been years, and it really wasn't very memorable. Let me put it that way.
So someone from Des Moines ends up in Las Vegas. They could definitely get themselves into a little bit of trouble, right? Bob.
Yeah, I mean, it's in Joni's top 20 of most covered songs. It's extremely popular.
Really?
Especially in Europe, especially in Italy. Italian jazz singers love this song. And Europeans love this song. It's been covered 100 times.
100 times?
100, yeah.
I never would have guessed that.
Wow.
It's in the top 20. Well, it's a very, very fun song to sing. I mean, Joni had this melody, and she carved incredible lyrics to this melody. I mean, if she wrote the song, it would have been brilliant, but she didn't write the lyrics. I mean, she didn't write the music. She wrote the lyrics to a melody, but the lyrics are brilliant. You know, the whole Midas thing. I mean, every lyric, every word in the song is totally brilliant, you know, and that gets picked up on.
Now, something I forgot to say about my journey to this album is this is one of the last albums that I found. So I had Shadows and Light before I had Mingus. So all these songs I came into in the Shadows and Light versions first. And if you all remember, of course, the version of Dry Cleaner from Shadows and Light is a little less melodic and a little more
incendiary.
So,
I mean, if you've been to Vegas, you know, Midas in a polyester suit, we all have seen that guy in Vegas playing the slot machines, you know.
So when I finally got the Mingus album and heard the album version, it was instant love because this is just such a swinging tune. I mean, it might be in my top 20 favorites as well. I mean, this is another one like driving in the car, singing really loud. Oh,
and of course the Shadows and Light version with Jocko's bass on this track is just unbelievable. I mean, he is at his peak.
It was his horn arrangement too on the Mingus record. So Jocko was a phenomenal arranger, and so apart from the bass playing, he was all over this tune in terms of the parts he wrote for the horns. This tune grew out of a feel that Peter Erskine happened to be playing on with his brushes in the studio. He was just warming up on something, and Joni said, "That's it. That's what I want for this song. Do that." And so once they had the right drum groove, they were good to go with the rest of it.
In concert, she started with that drum groove too. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
In the movie, we've seen her. You know, he's working the drums, and she comes up to the mic, just grooving it. She's feeling it.
Yeah.
There's very funny lyrics in here too, and I think some of them probably fly over the heads of Europeans. Like the cleaner from Des Moines could put a coin in the door of the John and make 20 to 1.
Get 20 for 1. It's just luck.
Somebody want to unpack that?
Well, there was an Italian jazz singer who actually named her album "It's Just Luck" and covered this song on the record. Mia Generic. But yeah, I've got 3 lemons, 3 cherries, 3 plums. I'm losing my taste for fruit.
I forgot to mention the coin in the pocket rap that preceded the song. Another little sound clip from Mingus that takes us into this one.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, and I just wanted to know, so do the cowgirls fill the room with their big balloons at Circus? Because I didn't, I've asked people, when I go to, I've been to Las Vegas a couple times. I say, I want to go to Circus, where the cowgirls fill the room with their big balloons. And everybody says, no, I don't know what you're talking about. So has anyone seen cowgirls filling rooms with balloons at Circus? No. Maybe they were a special treat for the weekend that Joni was there in 1978.
I wasn't looking at the girls when I was in Vegas, so I can't answer that.
Yeah.
Yeah, been to Circus. Didn't see that.
You would have remembered.
It'd be funny if we had a Joni Fest, if you did one in Vegas. We're looking for cowgirls with big balloons.
It's a really difficult lyric to sing. Comes from the room with their big, comes from the room with their...
You can get anything you want in Vegas.
Alice's
Cowgirls
restaurant.
with big balloons, you'll find them.
Might be why I don't like Vegas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought Vegas was a little overrated, and so was In-N-Out Burger.
I have never been to Vegas.
I'm like, take me back to the East
There to
Coast.
go.
All
I'm
right.
actually going to be there in 2 weeks. I'll let you know if I see any.
Yeah, you have a mission. Ruben, we need pictures from inside a Circus.
Yeah.
Big balloons.
Yes.
Big balloons.
There better be some screen sharing going on next
definitely.
podcast. All right. Well, I guess, lyrically, we're not going to get into a long philosophical discussion about the dry cleaner from Des Moines. But
I think it's a great song, though. It's one of her faster, high energy songs. She doesn't do too many of these.
No.
I think another one that comes into mind, don't throw anything, is Dancing Clown. That is this level of sort of energy. I like this song. I like this one a lot.
do you like Dancing Clown?
I do.
I like it too.
Favorite song.
Raised on Robbery, too.
Yeah.
Wait, Jahida, did you say you like, what was that you said?
I said Dancing Clown is Bob's favorite song.
Shut up.
Don't make me call Rowdy Yates. Don't make me call him.
Just shut the fuck up right now.
That's it, Rowdy.
Them's fighting words, Jahida.
I know what I'm covering. No. I'm gonna play my broom air guitar for you guys. Any other thoughts on Dry Cleaner from Des Moines? Dave?
I'm so glad it's around. I'm
Oh,
so
yeah.
glad it's here.
Obviously, this tune is a 12-bar blues, but what's interesting is that the turnarounds and the changes are different each time through. So it's never a repeating cycle exactly, which is, I didn't even really notice at first, but when I actually just decided to work out what's going on in each particular stanza or each verse, I found that out. So if that's of interest.
So the melody's a little bit different in each verse?
Not the melody, the chords are different. And you think, well, a blues is a blues. It's, it's kind of it's sort of a set piece, but actually there's a lot of different turnarounds and stuff that are inside the chord progression that can be substituted, and they use them all.
Wow.
That is interesting. I didn't realize that.
That's on Mingus?
I can give you a brief little demo here. So if this is, so here would be a stock blues. Okay, that's a stock blues, but what they do in this is, so it's got a lot more changes in it. It's still a 12-bar thing, but it's got a lot of substitutions in it. And that gave Jocko a lot of freedom to work the horn arrangement around different chords each time through.
That's such a tasty horn arrangement too.
It is.
All right. Any thoughts on Dry Cleaner?
Just one more, and that's the live version. It has an interaction. I know this isn't the right album, but an interaction between what Jocko's playing and what Brecker's playing on the saxophone, and it's just almost like a duel, and then it ends.
Mm.
And Jocko let Brecker take the last, had the last word in that. It's sublime to me.
At my last job I worked, they're going around. I worked at a pizza place before years ago. And someone said, if you could be anywhere at any time in history, where would you be? And I said, I'd be at Joni Mitchell's Shadows and Light concert. That's the place, anywhere in history, that's where I'd be.
I have a question for Dave. Dave, with regard to the horns and kind of, where Jocko took the bass and everything, could they have easily or not applied kind of the Stax Motown treatment to this?
Oh yeah, it would have worked in all kinds of ways, and Jocko was really into that too. On his own solo album in '76, he had Sam and Dave on one of the tunes, and lots of his own horn arrangements. In fact, this is more of an R&B horn arrangement than a jazz horn arrangement, up to a point.
It still seems like it's mixed relatively light. You know what I mean? Like it's not a, maybe I don't know if compressed is the right word that I'm looking for, but it doesn't have that kind of pop record attack that I guess I would be wondering about.
A lot of it is like what they call a shout chorus in jazz, where there's kind of a rather ornate line where everybody's playing in unison. Right. He used some of that.
All right. Well, Bob, did anyone cover? Go ahead, Mark.
I've always kind of marveled at the vocal, particularly in the live version when she starts out with just the percussion, because she's starting out and there's no instrument that's giving her any kind of pitch. But she's spot on with her.
Actually, she does lean over to Brecker and say, "Give me a note," and momentarily he goes, and she's off.
But she gives her one note, right? The note that she's going to start on. Is that correct?
More like it could be that her first note, but more likely it's just the tonic of the key.
But she sings that melody spot on.
In fact, her first note is the tonic of the key, so that would work.
Yeah.
All right. Let me scan the room to make sure I'm not missing anybody. I'm getting a little tired, but we're going to power through and do a Joni album in one night for the first time in 4 months or 3 months.
Yeah.
We got it through all 6 songs in one night.
So yeah, just to answer your question, 100 covers. The first one was instrumental from the Mingus Dynasty in '79. They picked up on these melodies and played this record. But the first vocal was Jackie Fitzgerald, our Australian vocalist, in '85. She was the first one to do this song as well.
Did anybody cover the Lucky Rap?
No.
Okay. So I guess we're going to be moving on to the final song on the album, which we heard performed wonderfully from Dave and Robin, Goodbye Pork Pie Hat, which was an existing instrumental from 1959. And Joni put wonderful words to it. Now, for me personally, I liked the album version of Dry Cleaner better than the live one. But for Pork Pie, I like the Shadows and Light one over the album one. I feel like she just really gives it her all. It's one of my favorite live performances ever.
And that was going to be my comment. Was it actually is more swinging, a little bit more like the original recording that Mingus did. It's got a little bit more of that. It's a little bit closer to the original, actually.
When Robin, when you were singing, I'm like, is she gonna do the Mingus version or the Shadows and Light?
Oh, what did I do?
I think it was closer to Shadows and Light.
Yeah, I felt there's parts of it that swing.
Yeah.
That you want to swing it.
It has to be a pretty slow tempo there, because there's lines in it that you can barely fit in all the verbiage and make the downbeat, you know. So we used to play it with our band, and then and very often the tempo was a little too fast and it was just not workable. So you have to be careful to start it out at the right tempo.
That was the fabulous Robin Adler version.
It was fabulous. Everybody's.
Thank you. I think that there's somebody else wrote lyrics to this song too.
Yes, more than one person.
Yeah.
Oh,
but Joni's are the best, I'm sure.
Of course.
Joni has said that Jon Hendricks wrote lyrics to it and that Mingus played her a version of the song, and I have never been able to find it anywhere if he did. But she said that he played it for her and looked at her and said, "It's awful, isn't it?" And she said it was a very kind of, what's the word I want? Maudlin take on it, you know, the poor black musician, blah, blah, blah. And she was kind of surprised because Jon Hendricks is one of her idols. I mean, and he writes fabulous lyrics for vocalese numbers. But this, she said, was not good. But I've never been able to find it anywhere.
Are we on plan? Do you think we came up from the subway to the music Midnight Makes? Do you think that she's talking about herself and Don Elias at that point?
Yeah, that's what she says.
That's what I always
did
thought
she
too.
say that? Oh, okay.
You know, on the live version, she sings "Dawn and Me, We Look Up," and there's a sign up on the arm.
Oh, okay.
That's right.
And you know that the tenor solo on the 1959 version is what she wrote lyrics to?
Yeah, I was listening to that today, Dave, just to check that. And she's talked about how difficult that was to write the lyrics to that particular solo. She said it was just nearly impossible, and it drove her crazy for a long time.
Until she totally nailed it.
Yeah, she says her lyrics have to match the melody so that it doesn't interfere with English inflection, she says.
Yeah.
And she did. She managed to do it, and she hit it spot on.
I just feel like this is the perfect song. It's perfect.
Just beautiful lyrics, you know, historically speaking, you know, Lester Young, and just great.
She kind of, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No.
The or be hung from a tree, that's unlikely. That's a little bit whimsical, but it works.
Yeah. But she struggled with how she was going to present the thing. She didn't feel like she could write a historical song about Lester Young. And she framed it very well, I thought. She starts it out saying, when Charlie speaks of Lester, you know, someone great is gone. Well, she puts both herself and Mingus in the song. Mingus is telling her.
Yeah. Mm.
And also Jacko is playing bass. That's Mingus speaking. And at some point, Wayne comes in, and that's Lester in the background. And then she brings it up to the present in the last verse, of course, when she and Don Elias come up out of the subway and see the two little kids dancing in front of the pork pie hat bar.
All right, so we have Jahida, then David.
So, full confession, this is one of the only Joni song I actually did in my senior recital as a jazz vocal major, and it has a very deep place in my heart. I love you, Dave, but I have to kind of disagree with you that being hung in a tree, that whole line is not whimsical at all. It is really just kind of
No, what's whimsical is that's unlikely.
Agree. I mean, and I think, you know, the whole idea of her and Don Elias being together is certainly more of the unlikely thing. I think it's just it's her callback being home tree. To me, it's her callback to Strange Fruit with Billy, right? And so I feel this whole song, I mean, it's especially because we had this whole huge conversation about Don Juan's Reckless Daughters cover with her Art Nouveau, right? And what audiences would think about it today, right? And so I think especially too at the end of the song, you know, she may have even maybe, I don't know, and you can all get on me and be like, oh, you young lady, no, this is not the case. But I feel like even within the Shadows and Light recording, this may have been changed from to you know, little black babies, right, to it became to two little dancers, right? And so I felt like maybe she had switched it because she had understood the fact that a white woman saying that may not have gotten over so well. And I felt like perhaps Don Elias may have helped her understand that, right? So and again, I mean, this is not to slight Joni in the least, right? Like, she obviously is not coming from a place of discrimination. You know, she's not coming from a place of degradation. She's coming from, she is honoring these people. She feels as though she is right there with them. And for her, it's just a natural thing, which I mean, I get it, like, you know, but I do have to kind of in some way thank the fact that maybe Don Elias gave her a little bit of a, maybe you should just like rethink that line just a bit, you know. And so she made it so that it was a lot more accessible for people that are not of color. So to sing. So I this is it's a really hard song to sing. Really hard song to sing. But this is a song that if you as a vocalist, and again, Robin, you are really lucky you got Dave. But as a vocalist, to say to a group and say, hey, can you do the song? they are just like, and then when you give them, because if you give them the Joni version, they're like, holy shit, this is hard as balls, because it's not in a typical key, right? But if you put it in the original Mingus key, it's easier for them. So that's what we ended up doing for my my recital. And as somebody who also grew up next to New York City, I feel like this is also one of those songs that kind of gets you really excited about New York City. It really gives you that excitement of coming up from the subway and just coming across excitement. You know, you never know what you're going to come up to. You really don't. You know, it could be the most boring freaking thing on the planet, or it could be like, holy shit, what the hell happened while I was in the train, you know?
It's so true.
and so this is one of those things where I'm just like, this song, I'm just like, it really tells you like how, as a tourist, how you feel in a way sometimes just being in New York City. You come from a subway and it's just like music, and it can be at midnight, you know. Just really quickly, one of the things that I thought was the funniest thing was once one of my ex-boyfriends was from Vermont, and he came to visit, and I said, well, let's take a nap. And he was like, what do you mean? It's like 8 o'clock at night. And I said, well, we need a nap because we're going to meet up with some of my friends, and nothing starts until at least 11 o'clock. So we need a nap now, a disco nap, if you will, before we start, you know, actually partying. Granted, this is when I'm in my own early 20s. So, you know, not anytime recent. And he was like, are you kidding? I was like, nothing even starts until 12 o'clock or at least 1 in the morning. And he was like, where do you live? You know? So this is what I mean. Like, it's, you know, we're coming up from the subway on the music midnight makes.
She's describing the change in sound pressure, even that you're confronted with. You know, the atmospherics even that hit you. You know, where the sound is coming from. It's an extraordinary experience. Everybody should have it. What can we say?
I 100% agree. It is something where it's like, if you don't understand what it's like to go to bed and wake up at a time that you don't think you should be out, and go out in New York City at that time and see how it is truly the city that never sleeps, you know what I mean? That's just the thing. It's that kind of excitement, and it's like, what's gonna happen?
Well, actually, Bob Mueller has had the most recent experience of this. And how is it working right now, Bob? After the pandemic, is it alive yet? New York.
New York is alive and well. Yeah, it's going.
Okay.
Just have your Vax card and your ID ready.
Bob, are you here? I'm here too. I would move the camera and show you Lower Fifth Avenue.
Toronto, sure.
No, I'm in New York.
You're in New York?
Yeah.
What?
But anyway, can I talk to? Yohain, are you done? Okay, because I want to say exactly what you just said. Actually, I mean, really, I was going to say what you said, and so I'm going to say it again. When I was listening to this again this week, the lyric of or be hung in a tree, that's unlikely. I thought, well, that's a little light, that's a little fey to be talking about lynching, It just really hit me. The Black Babies line has always bothered me. And she did change it in the concert version, but also in the experimental version. When it's she says there are black babies dancing, just like Charlie and Lester were dancing. You know, I just want to contextualize this, so you don't just think I'm talking about like black babies. You know, so again, I find it, you know, problematic racially, and that's all I have to say. Thanks. And New York's fabulous, and I'm here. All right.
How long are you in New York for?
I'm kind of living here now.
Oh, okay.
Until I'm going back to Toronto for a week next week, but I'm bi whatever. I'm bi-national these days, but mostly I'm in New York.
Wonderful. I always felt like this.
Wait, what are you doing here? I'm just curious. You know.
I'm being an actor.
Wonderful.
I sleep late. I sleep late and wonder.
Wonderful. Do you have a gig, or are you on?
I have had gigs. Now we're recording this, but I have had gigs. I'm now my gig is to look for gigs. So I look for work every day.
We're all flying over to see you perform.
I was just gonna say, I think you and Chris just need to hang out together, and that's so.
Okay. All right.
Now that I know that you're here, and I may have a line on a job, so I can start spending some money again.
Okay. We definitely have to hang out then.
Well, I have never been to New York City.
Oh.
I tell you, I know, and this isn't like coming out of the subway, but I actually walk out my apartment building and I turn right, and there's the fucking Empire State Building, and I think, when am I going to get used to this? And I don't think ever. It's just
you'll get used to it.
Amazing. There's like in the harbor, there's like this statue that's like 150 feet tall in the middle of the fucking harbor. It's unbelievable. That's chutzpah. Anyway, I
would like to experience it, but whether that happens before.
It will happen.
You can sit on this sofa right here.
I'm going to throw out two things and we'll get back on topic. Number one, I love to visit New York, but I'm definitely a Florida boy. And number two, I forgot already. Oh, I always felt like this song, I always just felt like it took place at 4 a.m. It just always felt like between 3 and 4 a.m. that she's coming up out of the subway. Because I definitely have my New York City stories of coming out of the subways and et cetera, et cetera.
Jahida mentioned Billie Holiday, so I just have to go into this spiel. Lester Young was considered to be like a musical lover to Billie Holiday. In the 30s, he made quite a few recordings with her and with Teddy Wilson on piano, but the two of them could rap around one another in the most beautiful fashion. Her vocals and his playing were just sublime. They died like within 3 or 4 months of one another.
Hmm.
So he was kind of an odd character. He was kind of shy and spoke this lingo that very few people could understand that didn't know him, and was considered one of the most influential tenor saxophone players in jazz. He played a kind of a light lyrical style compared with the big bombastic big band or bop style that a lot of saxophone players played, and so it was perfect for Billie Holiday.
I was just gonna say that. I was like, you couldn't find someone better to accompany her, because he did have such a delicate lyrical sound, and it took me a long time to get her too.
So he was the sweetest swinging music man, you know.
If we already covered this, I apologize, but does anyone know Mingus did hear this version of the song, correct? He heard her lyrics?
Yes, he did.
Was it well received? Do we know?
Yes, it was. And and this is one version, as we've said, one version of lyrics against this song.
Mm-hmm.
There was also a Rahsaan Roland Kirk lyrical version, which is not as good. There was also a Vin Don Fronio Italian version, and there was also a Lauren Hooker version where she says "Goodbye to Pork Pie." But Joni's version lyrically, and I'm biased, of course, is by far the finest lyrical version of this song.
The definitive?
Definitive, indeed. And there's 89 versions of people singing these lyrics.
Really?
So that proves me out.
My goodness. There were so many songs on Don Juan's that hardly anyone did or no one did. And I'm surprised that there's 100 versions of a song from Mingus, then 89 of another. So
yeah,
it's cool.
89 from an album that wasn't well received, supposedly.
Yeah.
I mean, like we all love it, but we're a dozen people here.
I downloaded from the library archive today all the Mingus reviews, and I only got through like 5 or 6, maybe 7 of them, and they were all
good,
like, gloriously loving this album. So I mean, I guess because jazz wasn't as popular as Aerosmith in those days.
What is more popular than Aerosmith though?
And I think Rolling Stone's trashing it. Rolling Stone has too much weight.
But didn't Joni have a Rolling Stone cover story that accompanied this album?
They were kind of not nice to her pretty regularly.
Cameron Crowe interviewed her, and it was published in Rolling Stone just prior to the release of Mingus. I remember reading it and being very excited about hearing this record.
It's a great interview because it's in the. There's a book that compiled a bunch of Rolling Stone interviews, and it's part of that book, and that's where I got the interview. But I loved that interview.
Yeah.
Well, Cameron Crowe really loves Joni.
Yeah, he has at least one painting we know.
There was one review of Mingus from some publication in the UK that was just horrible. And one of the things they said about it was at least Joni and Mingus didn't decide to go with their original idea of recording or making a recording of that supreme wanker T.S. Eliot. So this person definitely had an attitude, I think.
There's no comprehending.
Sounds like something somebody would have written on Twitter today.
I asked Les if anybody had a lead on the recordings that Joni gave to Mingus, and he said no, that he knows of.
Wow.
So
So do we anticipate that?
Well, it could be in her house.
Yeah.
In a box.
You're gonna have to go there, huh?
Yeah, we'll have to. Can we just fish around in your attic?
I don't.
Send Brandy Carlisle up there.
I don't see that coming out on an archive.
We'll have Brandy keep her talking while we go up in the attic.
Oh gosh. Well,
here's that review that Mark was talking about. I actually was reading this earlier while we were talking, this review of Mingus from the UK, and just one thing struck me. In the last few years, mainly subsequent to her live history book, Miles of Isles, Joni has lost her little girl with big acoustic appeal and has paired her increasingly mature physical appearance with a move towards a looser, jazzier style.
Oh, dear.
Why is it just common to take specific note, particularly with women, of their physical appearance when talking about their work, whether it's art or anything else? It's just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
And this is a really snarky review too. It's if anybody wants to read it, it's called Scared to Dance. It's on the website.
Who wrote it?
Sandy Robertson from Sounds Magazine.
No. It is snarky.
Do you think Sandy was a man?
Probably not.
I think he was. I'm not positive on that, but
interesting question.
Oh, there's Alexa. And then it says, thankfully, Mitchell and Mingus never got around to their proposed musical version of the work of that arch wanker T.S. Eliot.
Oh, my goodness.
It's really, that's the worst one I've ever read, I think.
My gosh.
You know,
So
interesting though, when I was going through years ago, because I've heard Joni in interviews mention how the press trashed this album, and really I found many more, like Sue, I think you said a minute ago, many more good reviews than bad ones. And she's the one that I think has perpetuated this myth that the press didn't like. I don't know. I wasn't there, obviously, but it's interesting.
But they were kind of all over the place. I mean, one review said she wasn't much of a jazz singer. Another one said she did an excellent job of singing on these. And then one review that I remember said that the wolf that lives in the wolf that lives in Lindsay. Mark can talk really. Harken back to her more beautiful songs from her first record. Something to that effect. And I thought, did you even listen to the damn thing?
Maybe Nathan Lafreniere and Lindsay were hanging out with each other.
Yeah.
And the dancer from the Pirate of Pets.
I looked it up. Sandy Robertson is a man.
I
It's
knew
quite
it.
a common name in England, actually, for a male name. I was just going to say that I think that she would have done an excellent job with the four quartets.
I agree.
Elliot is a wordsmith on a par with her, and I think she would have done a good job, although it must have seemed like a daunting task initially, but then she took on a different daunting task with the tapes that Mingus gave her, and she nailed that too.
No, she was too busy writing a 4-hour ballet. So,
but anyway, I think Elliot actually would be a very interesting pairing with Joni Mitchell.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, well, I'm going to start to wrap it up with the most intellectual question of the entire series. If you had to meet someone in a dark alley, would it be Nathan Lafreniere, the dancer from Pirate of Pendants, or Lindsay from Wolf That Lives in Lindsay?
Was Lindsay a real person, or
I don't know.
It's an area.
Is it a place or a person?
I thought it was a person.
But I suppose lives in Lindsay kind of makes it sound like a place. But
I thought it was like someone had a demon within themselves.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I never thought of it that way.
Me neither.
It's interesting. I never thought of it as a place. So, wow.
That's an interesting twist.
The line is the wolf that lives in Lindsay.
There lives a wolf in Lindsay. No, wait a minute.
Which could go either way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a person that none of us want to meet.
I think I'll hang out with the dancer.
It makes me wonder if there was a news item or something in the papers about this killer called Lindsay that year that she decided to write about.
Yeah, I wonder that too, especially because the reference to the grandfather and the sister, it seems so specific.
Yeah. So yeah, it may have been in a news item.
Because her father loved an empire, right?
His sister
loved a thief. And Lindsay loved the ways of darkness.
Lindsay loved the ways of darkness. Yeah. Beyond belief. So I think it's a person.
Yeah.
Wait, so Nathan, Lindsay, and who?
The dancer from Pirate of Penance.
Okay.
I know it had to be in there somewhere.
I think you're more likely, because Lindsay, I think, would kill you. Didn't the dancer? She's the one that saw him last. The one that drew him near.
Nathan Lafrenieres are a dime a dozen in New York.
Yeah, we'll go with Nathan.
I would totally flag down Nathan Lafreniere and have him get me out of there.
Yeah, get me away from Lindsay. All right. Sorry, I always have to take it down a notch, but
Yes, definitely Nathan.
All right, this has been wonderful. Can we all kind of assume that these other versions will be on the archives when we get to that era?
I hope so.
Joni and Herbie, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Interesting. Maybe not awesome, but interesting.
Are there versions other than the? Are there still unreleased versions other than the experimental tapes?
I would bet money that there are.
I would imagine so. I mean, you know, and I would hope too that, I mean, as much as I hate to say that, it would probably be more likely once Joni is no longer with us, but
Right.
you know, all of those, you know, unreleased things from Mingus might make its way to the public. So it just, she may not even realize like she has it at this point, you know what I mean? And that's something that people would want to hear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like we'd be like, we want to hear it, and she's like, you want to hear that? You know what I mean? So
It's probably like a tinkling, like it's probably a hot mess.
I will in some ways hope, but speculate that she's already getting a pit bull standing by to watch out for that kind of stuff when and if it happens.
Right.
Well, I know she has Marcy, but as far as I understand, otherwise, I mean, you know, as I understand, it's Doran who has say in the listening now.
So we know with the Mingus songs there were different versions cut, but were there different versions cut of the two Joni songs, The Wolf That Lives in Lindsay and God Must Be a Boogeyman? Did she try that out with different sets of musicians also?
I think there was a live version of Wolf That Lives in Lindsay from an earlier, like not from the Shadows and Light tour, but on it. And I can't really remember what concert it was, but
I think you're right.
There was some kind of benefit, and she was encouraging people to howl like wolves.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
She did it at one of the Bread and Roses concerts.
Yeah, it was Bread and Roses show.
We would all been howling
I thought
along.
you were asleep, man.
I was. I woke up.
All right, it is getting late, so we'll do our traditional where we go around and rank the album on a scale of 1 to 10. Then we'll pause and just talk for a couple more seconds because you know we need to. So I'm going to start off and say I give Mingus 10 out of 10. And whoever wants to jump in, 10.
I said 10.
10.
10 out of 10.
It's a crummy album. It ruined her career.
Yeah. Damn it.
I'll go 10.
I have to save the 10s for the Hajeras and for the Roses type thing. I think it's wonderful, and it definitely has stood up well over the years. But I think I'd have to give it an 8.
Okay.
I'm going to say 9.5. For the same reasons that Dave said.
All right, I changed mine to a 9.
I'm going in hot with a 10.
9.5. 9.5.
It's definitely my last 10 for Joni was this one. From now on, we're going downhill.
Yeah.
I didn't hear.
So we are about to leave the 70s, y'all. We made it through the 70s together.
Wow.
We're about to head over to Geffen Records. We're about to head over to the arcade to play pinball with Larry Klein.
Yep.
And we're about to get rid of the perm and have a feathered shag.
Fancy a shag, do you?
But just as you review the new stuff you're going to be looking at and listening to, look at the smile on Joni's face in some of these photographs you're going to be looking through. It's something very different.
Oh, I think some of those photographs, she looks the most beautiful.
Yeah, me too.
From the 90s.
Yeah, that was a great time for her.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Not to jump ahead of ourselves, but there's some albums coming up that I love. Like I actually love Chalk Mark, Night Ride Home, Turbulent. So
they're great albums.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I was like, oh, I know, Dave, you're saying, you know, you would reserve those for Hajira, but if I was around in the earlier days, like Clouds, I'd be like, meh, because I know some of you would be like, how dare you? But I am so not a fan of Clouds at all.
Yeah, I'm not either.
You know what's surprising is when we did Ladies of the Canyon, I'm like, I don't really like all the songs on this album, which was surprising because, you know, it's such an iconic album. So
Clouds,
no judgment here.
Clouds is towards the bottom for me, Jahida, too.
Yeah, oof. It's just
Legacy is really hard to separate from contemporaneous.
Don't make me get Roses Blue on the phone. All right, friends. Well, we're going to talk for a second after we pause. But now, Robin, I always go back to at the end because I get sad when we pass the album. Now we're done with Mingus.
Yeah.
Jim, I was glad to have you join us tonight. I hope you had a good time.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah,
sir.
you'll be with
good
us
to see
now.
you, Jim.
You'll be with all of you too.
And
I'm still getting older every day.
Thanks to my Patreon friends, thanks to the YouTube subscribers, and most of all, thanks to Joni Mitchell for giving us some of the best music that was ever created in this universe. All right.